Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's January 24th, Wednesday. This is the Board of Commissioners Workshop. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Rosteck,
Present.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Here.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Here.
Commissioner Brooks. Here. All are present.
Thank you kindly. Next up is public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. Is there any public comment? I'll take that as a no. Next up are presentations. First, Chief, would you like to come up? First up is Fire Crew of the Year.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for giving us a few moments of your time this evening. First, I would like to recognize some guests in attendance tonight. We have District Chief Tom McClave with St. Pete Beach Fire Rescue, formerly of Madeira Beach Fire Department. And we have Battalion Chief Ramon Gonzalez from Polk County Fire Rescue. So the first award is for Firefighter of the Year, kind of with a twist. So what we have traditionally done is we have polled the department and the members submit their votes for who they feel is worthy of this award. When calls for service come in, and it's a roll of the dice. This particular shift seemed to be getting a lot of the low frequency, high risk type of calls, such as the alligator attraction to alarm fire in Johns Pass, bad vehicle versus pedestrian motor vehicle collision in Reddington Beach, and multiple water rescues with two of them having deployed the rescue swimmer and making patient contact just before the patient went under. I would also like to add that just this afternoon, an older woman and her son came in, the same crew that's getting this award for what they did last year is still continuing to do this. So she came in, they responded to her January 11th, unresponsive, spent 11 days in ICU, came in and thanked us today. She's literally a So it's my pleasure to introduce the first ever Fire Crew of the Year, A Shift, Lieutenant George Hill. Former firefighter, paramedic, and current Lieutenant John Sleppy. More on that in a moment. Driver engineer, Jamie McGoy. He's also celebrating his 10th year with the fire department. And firefighter, paramedic, Nick Lucas. Your 2023 Madeira Beach Fire Department Fire Crew of the Year.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The next award or recognition is reclassification and promotion from fire inspector to fire marshal. Raul Perez came to us from Polk County and promoted to fire inspector in 2020. After a few years on the street, he began expressing his interest in fire and arson investigations and started taking the required classes at the State Fire Academy. He passed the state exam and is now recognized as a fire and arson investigator, and that's a pretty big deal. There's not many within the entire state. So we are promoting him from fire inspector to fire marshal, which is, again, the first one in Madeira Beach Fire Department history and the first investigator we have had as well. So it is my honor to present to you all Fire Marshal Raul Perez. Carla, if you could come up, and Battalion Chief Gonzalez. All right, next is the promotion of firefighter paramedic to lieutenant. This is special to me because Lieutenant Sleppy came to Madeira Beach Fire Department as a brand new firefighter, fresh out of the academy. And to see him grow in the fire service is exactly what you strive to accomplish with your firefighters. This was a very competitive promotional testing, and an outside resource was used to evaluate the candidates on their competency of operations, policies and procedures, and administrative duties. Lieutenant Sleppy scored the highest and has since taken over the training officer's role as well. We would also like to recognize him for his 10th year with Madeira Beach Fire Department as well. So it is my honor to present to you all Lieutenant John Sleppy.
Oh.
Don't poke him, he'll still get that toy. There you go. Good job, Blake. Thank you. Again, Lieutenant John Sleppy. So the last recognition of the evening, I would like to introduce our 4 most recent new hires. They are Chase Hallfast, Kyle Watts, John Mordelite, and Mario Barbera. What's interesting is 2 of them come to us with no experience, fresh out of the academy. One came here with 6, and the other is here with over 30 years of experience. And it's a great example of different experience levels coming together to accomplish the main objective, which is, of course, community safety and risk reduction. This large hiring, for our standards, was needed to staff our new medic unit to remain NFPA compliant and maintain our ISO rating. Again, traditionally, the fire chief is the one who pins the new employees, but when I call your name, please come up with your spouse or significant other. Mario, Barbara, and Tiffany. You stay out here though. Firefighter paramedic John Mordelite and his wife Tara. Next is firefighter EMT Kyle Watts and his wife Mackenzie. And last is firefighter EMT Chase Halfast and his girlfriend Jordan. Right. Commission, community, these are your recent hires for your Madeira Beach Fire Department. Again, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, for this, a few moments of your time this evening. Thank you.
Anytime, Chief. Okay, next item on the agenda is Brian Lowak, President, CEO, Visit St. Pete, Clearwater.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Brian Lowak, President CEO, Visit St. Pete Clearwater, and I have the distinct privilege of leading the organization since June of last year on an interim basis and since October of last year in the permanent role. So I'm excited to be out here tonight and share what we've got going on, what we're all about at Visit St. Pete Clearwater. What we are, you may or may not have heard of Visit St. Pete Clearwater. But what we are is really we're the economic engine of our community, tourism that is. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like in this presentation, but we are the destination marketing organization for Pinellas County. So we market the destination both domestically, internationally, with a goal of increasing visitation to the destination and ultimately driving economic impact. So at Visit St. Pete Clearwater, some may think that we're just a marketing agency. I've heard that in the past, but we're so much more than that. I listed a few of our departments here. We've got community engagement team, and what they do is they work closely with our partners in Pinellas County. So we cannot do what we do. We don't have a destination without our partners, our cities, our 24 municipalities, our chambers of commerce, our hoteliers, our restaurateurs, our attractions. That's what they do. Brand activations. If you were recently out at John's Pass Seafood Festival last weekend, you may have saw our activations team out there. They attend events both in market, but also out of market to educate folks, attendees of those events, what we've going on here in the destination. Leisure travel. They work. We have an office over in UK, an office in Germany, as well as some partners down in Latin America, specifically Brazil. But what leisure travel does is they work with the travel trade to put together, well, twofold, to educate travel agents on the destination, provide training, and then also to put together packages for the destination. So I recently met with folks from Virgin Atlantic Holidays, and they put together a travel package. And I asked them, where's the number one package and location in Pinellas County that you get business from? And it's actually here in Madeira Beach. I won't say the name of it, but it is in Madeira Beach. And it was one that I was actually surprised to hear would beat out some of the others. So kudos to you all. Our film commission, a lot going on there. They recruit film production companies to come shoot in market, hire local crews, and spend money in the destination. You may have seen in the last couple of days, releases have gone out regarding the Taste of Love, which is a Hallmark film that is getting ready. That shot in market a few years ago, finally made it to production, and they will be, I believe that airs in March. And then just recently, HGTV series was shot, their entire series down in Treasure Island, and that will be premiering in February. So we look forward to that. Marketing, advertising, we'll talk about public relations, meetings and groups. So we don't have a convention center here in Pinellas County like our friends across the bay do, but we do have a number of properties that have the room, the meeting space to host large meetings and events at their properties. So they travel around the country with those meeting planners to educate them on this destination and work with the hoteliers to book business here in market. And then our sports and events team, this is huge. They go out and work with amateur sports, collegiate sports, all sorts of sports that you've probably never even heard of or knew there was a market for. They work with them. They work closely each and every year with the city of Madeira Beach. Actually, they have a softball tournament out here at Rock Park. I know that's a popular destination for softball. So those are some of our departments that we have. You may have heard about the tourist development tax, and what the tourist development tax is, you may have also heard it called the bed tax. This is a 6% sales tax that is paid on any overnight visit under 6 months, whether it's a hotel, motel, short-term rental, campground, you name it, they're paying it. Here in Pinellas County, we're one of 11 high tourism impact destinations in the state of Florida, which means we can collect above and beyond the 5%, which is across the board. We collect that 6%. And those must be, by state statute, assigned to specific projects that promote and drive tourism to the destination. In addition to the state statute that governs the TDT, here in Pinellas County, our Board of County Commissioners has a local tourist development plan. And what that says is that 60% of that TDT funds marketing and advertising, funds our department, and then 40% of that goes to fund capital projects that will drive visitation to the destination. So talking about that fiscal impact, what did that look like? Last year in 2023, that was 15.8 million visitors to the destination, 6 million hotel room nights, $98 million in tourist development tax collection. That was a record. I tell the story. I've been with Pinellas County government since 2012. And shortly after I came on board, I remember we crossed that $30 million threshold to become a high tourism impact destination. Fast forward 11 years later, and we're knocking on the door of $100 million. $1.6 billion in total accommodations revenue, $6.5 billion direct economic impact from visitor spend, totaling $11 billion economic impact. $421 million in tax revenues from our visitors. So that is sales tax. You hear a lot about the penny for Pinellas, which I know you utilize for capital projects. Visitors pay a third of that. That $421 million is penny for Pinellas, state sales tax, property tax, as well as bed tax. And then tourism supports 1 in 10 jobs. It is the #1 job industry in Pinellas County. So who are these visitors that are coming to our beaches in our county? Top destinations domestically, we have a huge drive market. So a majority of our visitation, we have a lot of day trippers that drive from surrounding Bay areas, but we also get a lot of business from Orlando. You'll also see out of market New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Detroit. What do they all have in common? They're all cold and they've got a direct route down here. So those are the big markets that we focus on domestically. Internationally, everybody knows our friends from Canada enjoy Pinellas County, and they far and away make up the largest portion of our international traveler, followed behind UK. That's why we put a lot of focus on the UK market. Germany, other European countries, and then Latin America you see on there. That's one where the numbers you'll see shortly are significantly less than those other markets above it. However, the visitor there travels for longer, they're here for a longer period of time, and they know how to spend money. Target markets, these are markets that our marketing and advertising teams are focusing their dollars. So those little pings that you see throughout the eastern United States, those are our traditional markets. This is where our out-of-home commercials, TV, radio, magazines, billboards, that's where those are. Nashville, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Orlando. And our expansion markets, Chicago, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, and Detroit, those are where we see those numbers continue to increase, and there's a large opportunity for growth. Those two blue bubbles that you see, that's where we focus our digital efforts on. And really east of the Mississippi, state of Texas, we're starting to see pings west of that, and we hope to do more and expand those blue blobs to the west shortly. So what are our marketing objectives? Obviously, we want to position Pinellas County as the premier beach and arts and culture destination, not only in Florida, not only in the United States, but in the world. We know that travelers, there's plenty of beach destinations throughout the state of Florida. If you want to go to the beach, you can go anywhere and find that, but you get so much more here. And one of the things that really makes us unique is our diversity because of our 24 municipalities. And from Tarpon Springs and the Sponge Docks all the way down to the Geckos in Gulfport, we've got 24 unique communities, and we want to make sure that we highlight that. So I'll show you that momentarily. We want to build awareness and intent, and then we know that with specifically on our digital side, we know when people are searching. So, hey, maybe someone gets on Google and they're searching vacation, Florida, beaches. We want to be in front of them and we want to convert them. So maybe they didn't know where they wanted to go. We want to make sure they see us and we persuade them to coming here. We want to increase visitor spend. After all, we're in this business to increase economic impact. So the longer they stay and the more they spend, the happier we are. This is an example of one of our pieces that is running right now in some of those cold northern markets, specifically during the winter time. So you can go ahead and play that if it will.
Let's head south this winter. Let's wander off the beaten path and go out a little further. Let's get lost in the possibilities and lose track of time. Let's make a great escape even better. Let's shine this winter in St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida.
And so you'll notice it wasn't just the beach in that commercial. It was the breweries. It was the arts and culture places. It exerted a vibrancy. That's what we want to be. We want to position ourselves, and that's what our travelers are looking for. I included this video. It's about a minute, but this one, we focus and highlight videos on all 24 of our municipalities. So when people come, we're not just showing them the Clearwater and St. Petersburg and the beaches. We're showing them the uniqueness of each and every one of our communities. And this is actually the one for Madeira Beach. And so we are a data-driven organization. We make all of our decisions based on data. We have a lot of it. And we know that we're entrusted with that tourist development tax. We want to make sure that we're getting maximum ROI every time we choose how to spend that. So I wanted to put this up. These are just a few of our data vendors that we use to collect this data. I am still diving into the data, and you can get lost in the data. So we've got a whole data team, and they're helping me to really understand all the tools we have at our hands, but it's extensive. This is a snapshot of our data dashboard symphony that we use. And it looks like this is on the left-hand side. This shows you a real-time, so 2023 Tampa Bay, where our international visitors came from. So you can see at the top, looks like Canada is over 500, I believe 545,000 visitors, followed by UK at about 120. And you can see those numbers go down the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you see our top domestic markets by origin, and that's based on overnight visitors as well as room nights.
By the way, we will make this available, obviously, as part of the minutes for this meeting, but also on our website.
So this is every month we do what we call a visitor profile, a visitor survey. And this is done in market Our data team goes out and they do these surveys with our visitors. So we know how long it takes between the time someone decides when they want to travel to the time they actually arrive. That's key because we need to know when they're thinking and making those considerations when they need to see our brand. We know how much the visitor spends. We break it down by both overnight visitors who spend a lot more on a daily basis, but then also on day trippers. And we know where they're spending those dollars. Travel party size, that one stays pretty constant, about 2.5. We see the percentage staying overnight. That's something that from last year we've seen go down. And then another one that has been constant since I've been over there, we started seeing it last April actually, is the age. And the folks coming, we're seeing a significant increase in the boomer generation this year. And you can see the average age back in 2021 was 49 years, and now we're up to 53 years. And these are November numbers. And then the average income, we got up to, and this combines both day trippers and overnighters. We got up to, at the peak in 2021, we're at about I believe $120,000 average income. We saw in April of last year, that dropped. That was down to about $60,000. That has increased month over month since April and continues to grow. And then I'm not going to go out in public and talk about what we do without promoting the value of tourism. We call that From Visitors with Love. And when I first came on, they came to me and said, we're about to unveil on 727 Day, actually. We're about to unveil this new campaign, and it's tailored towards our residents and local businesses to talk about the value of tourism. And the first thing I said is, well, aren't we supposed to be in front of folks who aren't here? Our residents are already here. What are we doing there? Well, it's really, as a DMO, it's our responsibility to be stewards of the destination. And I think we have an opportunity here in Pinellas County with 1 million residents to have 1 million brand ambassadors. I think we can all remember a trip that we went on and went to a small town, probably in the Midwest, and the people were so friendly and welcoming, and that really stuck with you. You felt welcome there. And we also know we've been to a destination where maybe we didn't feel that way. So we want to make sure that Pinellas County, when our visitors come here, we have welcoming residents, business owners. They understand that. So I'm going to continue to talk about this as much as I can. When we talk about the value of tourism, I mentioned earlier the capital projects. So the biggest one really is we dedicate 0.5% of the tourist development tax towards beach nourishment. So when we do beach nourishment projects, the emergency dune restoration projects, that comes from no general fund dollars. It comes 100%, the local portion at least, from our bed tax collection. So we like to say that's From Visitors with Love. Recently, when we started the Dunes project, specifically at some of the southern beach accesses, I don't know if any of them are in Madeira Beach. They may be in Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach. We installed these signs at those accesses, white sandy beaches funded by our visitors through bed tax dollars, just to remind residents when they go to the beach. Another added benefit of this is that tourist development tax, we have what we call elite events, and it's about $2 million annually, and we fund local events, sporting events, different events that draw visitors, put heads in beds, draw visitors to the destination, create exposure for the destination. But my favorite part is us locals, we get to go to these events year after year after year. One of those that just happened this weekend was John's Pass Seafood Festival. We had an activation out there. I was wearing my Packers gear, and yeah, we got a lot of Go Pack Goes. It was a great time. So I know that it attracted many visitors. This on the stage on the right, this was actually the first event where we had our new From Visitors with Love stage wrap, and we actually partnered with Creative Pinellas on this, so that we're going to have this stage at different events throughout the community, and we're going to find that stage will only host local artists and musicians. So that was really cool. And if you had an opportunity to see any of those bands, they rocked. So that is a quick overview of what we do at Visit St. Pete Clearwater. Hopefully you learned a little bit. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And you can always reach out to me directly. And we're here to support you all and the destination. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And if I may just add, Mayor and Commission, I've shared, I think, with all of you typically in my updates about the importance and the amount of data that is collected because it does tell a great picture. And since most of our economy is tourism dependent, obviously we need to continue to ensure that we do have the cleanest, safest, as best attractive city as we possibly can. But I do want to thank Brian and staff because they do provide a considerable amount of data and it is a lot. And I do encourage our public residents, go out to visit St. Pete Clearwater. It's actually the Tourist Development TDC. I forget the website exactly, but
TDC is the advisory board. We're the Convention and Visitors Bureau, county department, and doing business as Visit St. Pete Clearwater. But if you go to fromvisitorswithlove.com, that'll take you right to our campaign website, but also visit stpeteclearwater.com.
but a considerable amount of data that is very, very interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize this in the 23 years that I've been in Pinellas County, that is probably the best campaign that I've seen, because one of the things that I continue to reiterate, just as Brian said, is we do have 1 million ambassadors or folks that can help to promote the area. And all the years I spent in that other city up north, that was always very key, which, by the way, I thought we were changing it to visit the other one, St. Pete, but that's not going to happen, right? So different era. But we do encourage people, and if they ever have any questions, a lot of what does occur, a lot of the funding does come from our visitors. I recall years ago that even the state of Florida's general fund, a significant amount is not paid by residents of Florida, but rather the millions who come and visit. So it is important that obviously we're all aware of the millions of people that come here, but it is important to continue certainly to partner with all these agencies, but to continue to promote, but also to educate, inform, and advocate our residents of the importance of that, but also that they're not forgotten. They're a big part and the main part of all of this, and that's key so that we continue to, again, just have a wonderful place to live, learn, and work, and that's obviously Pinellas County, Tampa Bay, Pinellas County, and Madeira Beach. So Brian, thank you for coming out, and we really do appreciate all the information, and hopefully the wrestling event can be an annual one, but that's up to WWE. This Saturday is the wrestling Royal Rumble at Tropicana Field, which is a huge event. There will likely be hundreds of millions of people watching.
Yeah, so
around the world.
We actually had, just in pre-sale tickets alone, WWE, when those pre-sale tickets went on, they sold so many tickets, the site locked up. They sold tickets in all 50 states and 19 countries around the world. Just heard from someone down in downtown St. Pete on Monday. They ran into a couple from Germany who was in town for the week for Royal Rumble. So it's got broad appeal. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much. All right, next item up is discuss, review boats, liveaboards, anchoring, etc. Is there any public comment on this? Please come on up. You can have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll keep it to 5. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to voice our opinions and concerns up here. My name is John Garcia. I live at 15334 Harbor Drive, right down at the end of the canal here. And I'm here on behalf of myself and my neighbors. Some of them could make it tonight, working late, some are physicians. I've lived here for over 6 years, and we have had issues with these boats that are anchoring and mooring out here behind the house, and I'll share some of those issues with you. Our concern as neighbors is safety for our family, safety for the community, and the environmental impact that these boats may be having on this area here. These 2 incidents were reported to the police that I'm going to share with you, so they're documented, not hearsay. We had a situation where my neighbor, William, to the left of me, had a gentleman there was a boat out there. He was on it, went through his backyard at 3 a.m. in the morning, and his daughter was there. They were out of town, and the son was there. They ended up finding a large crowbar in the yard. They didn't see the gentleman with it, in all fairness. I want to be very accurate in my comments, but they did ask William, and William said, I've never owned a crowbar. So it came out of somewhere. That's concern number one. My other neighbor is Ruth Cabela, which owns Century 21 here, long-term Madeira Beach resident, 20-plus years, and contributed to the community with her realty office. Probably most of you know her. She's been here. She had one of the liveaboards, one of the boats there with a blue hull, yelling profanities at her, literally a few weeks ago, yelling at her, you can't do anything. Who are you? She is petrified. She's just a tiny lady and been here forever, and she's just scared because of what's going on. I am now watching because I live literally across the park. I'm in Pat Shant's old house. So I've got a lot of mayor history in the house that I live in, the long-term mayor of Madeira Beach. I watch the folks that are liveaboards will get on their tenders and they will dock at the park there, and they'll get off. And I'm not implying anything, but you know, we all have antennas. They walk over where the children are. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not implying anything, nor have I seen anything. It's just a little concerning that 2 or 3 of the folks that are living on this boat that are going supposedly to the store to get provisions, I understand, there's none on the boat, are docking there and walking around. And I just watch them. I don't know why. I don't know what it means outside. It's a little concerning. So again, I want to be very clear. I haven't seen anything. It is just an intuition from my 57 years on this planet that it's not correct. The boats out there present not only an environmental issue, but I know that the city of Madeira Beach, we had one of the boats got loose and hit the dock, and I don't believe it caused much damage. But that's a concern that we have as neighbors, that the boats will come loose and come at our seawall and hit our homes. Over COVID, there's presently 9 boats there now. Over COVID, we saw that balloon to 21+ boats. So you could imagine the environmental impact of, let's say, the majority of them dumping their sewage into that area. We know people live on it. We know that those boats have 30-gallon tanks. We know that you could fill that up in 3 days. So it's going somewhere. It's impacting our community, our environment, our backyards, and also the safety we're concerned. I'm concerned for my grandkids. I'm concerned for my neighbors. And this is not, as one of the folks that lived on the boat, I started asking some questions. Oh, you guys are just concerned about we're blocking the view. No, this is not about anybody blocking our view. We are boaters. I love looking at boats. Been a boater my whole life, and my neighbors are boaters too. This is not someone blocking a view, obstructing our view. This is legitimate safety concern and environmental concerns. Understand, there's 9 boats. We've had 2 incidents in the last 4 months where the police has come out. Statistically, in any neighborhood that has 100 homes, that would be 20 times the police would come out there. It's pretty high statistic numbers. So we appreciate your consideration and looking at this and looking at a possible solution. But again, myself and my neighbors are concerned about the impact to our safety of the community, and the environmental impacts. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your
Yeah,
comments.
thank you.
Would anyone else like to come up and comment on this? Please come up. We'd love to hear from you.
I have concerns as well. My wife and I, we run a short-term rental over here at Madeira Beach Yacht Club. And we see the boats as well, and we're
Yeah.
worried about.
Your name, sir?
Brian Gonzer.
And your address?
I live in Seminole,
Okay,
but we have a short-term rental here.
okay. We're
And
talking about liveaboard boats.
we are,
Okay,
but that's what I'm getting to.
okay. You can let him go first. You can come up after. It's
But
okay.
no, we're concerned about the environmental aspects as well as the safety. The boats, when the wind shifts, they are in the channel. which, you know, becomes a safety issue for other boats maneuvering through the channel. So that's pretty much what I had to say as well.
All right, well, thank you. Ma'am, would you like to come up? Please.
We also have a boat that we
Your
keep
name, your
there.
name.
My name is Belinda Gonzer, and we also use our condo much of the year. And we also have a 30-foot boat that we keep at our condo. We've had an incident where one of our props, we went out, we lost a prop, which we're not positive, but we feel like it was tampered with. We've had trouble. There's a sailboat that's anchored right at the end of our canal. Half the time it's right in the middle where we have issues when we go out coming back. That boat, we've never seen it leave. It must be dumping sewage. We've never, ever seen it leave where it's anchored at. It's in the way.
Are you over in the yacht club?
Yes.
Okay.
We have gone to where we've had to put key locks on our bathrooms because we are on our pool bathrooms. We can no longer keep them unlocked as we have to use keys to get in there because we've had fecal issues where somebody actually took a dump in our bathrooms over there. So all residents now have to use a key to get in and out of our pool bathrooms. And I'm pretty sure none of the people out of 286 units have gone from their unit to the bathroom to do that within the community. So, and we also have them go down the canal in their little dinghies to go get supplies. So just those things in general, but those boats, we've never seen them leave their moorage to go and dump their holding tanks. So I think environmentally, and we have 4 grandkids that use our condo a lot of the times. So those are just some of the issues that we've experienced with them being out there. That's all.
No, thank you. We need to hear this.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much. We appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome.
And we do plan to live there, which is, I hear a lot from our association manager that the city of Madeira Beach hates us, and I don't know why. We're fairly new owners, but our intent is to live here full-time. So as somebody who hasn't owned that long, I'm somebody who's concerned about the environment and, you know, continued support of the community. So you're going to see a lot of us going forward. So thank you.
No, thank you for your concerns, but we have your back. and
Okay.
We don't hate it. and
No.
Nobody up here hates anyone, but all about the city and its
Right.
people and
Yeah,
businesses.
and we're concerned and, you know,
We are too.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir? I'd love to hear from you.
I live in Palmetto, Florida, in Riviera Dunes. I have a slip down there and I live in a condo. My name is Phil Secord. I'm the regional manager of the Tampa Bay area for the Southwest Florida Marine Industries Association. So I came to this meeting because we get the agenda of every single city in my territory. I get it. And I want you to know, well, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be in Tallahassee with our leadership, and we're going to be meeting with all of our state senators and representatives. We have a lobbyist, Missy Timmons. I don't know if you know her name. She's hired by our organization to represent the marine industry overall. So I'll be up there for 2 days and spending the time meeting everybody in Tallahassee. In October, the 7 organizations like ours that make up the state of Florida, we all met in Stewart. We hashed out this topic and a whole bunch of other topics. And we voted on it and made a decision as to our position as a Marine Industry Association of Florida, again, made up of 7 regional associations. And again, I'm the regional manager. I go Sarasota, Manatee, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco, and I'm going to try to develop the Hernando Citrus area as well. That's part of my territory. So the point is that we are very concerned about this. We held a large law enforcement seminar, our organization, put together a large law enforcement seminar. We had 80 law enforcement people from FWC, municipalities. They came, their local police officers, and it was a tremendous day, and they all spoke to us about all sorts of things that they face. But we are very concerned about derelict boats. It's a big topic for us. We'll be dealing a lot with that when we get to Tallahassee. I'm a boater. I anchored. I'm a big cruiser. I'm going to be trawling now. I'm no longer sailing, but not not being able to transit the water and drop the hook and then continue on is a big problem for myself and boaters that have a slip and pay the money. And then we, like anybody who's been down a Longboat Key, it used to be called Moors. It's no longer Moors. Remember, I anchored there when the Dolphin used to be there. So anyway, we're very concerned that we're going to lose the opportunity to transit the coast, drop the hook, get up in the morning and continue. We are worried about that as an industry, because that's kind of a big part of boating. And we 100% understand exactly what's happening to all the municipalities, and we're very concerned about it. We do not like derelict boats. We're very much against them. We understand that sometimes people run into hard times and that's where they end up. We completely understand that, but we also realize that potentially they're not following the rules. And we're big environmentalists in our organization. We're all boaters. We have a tremendous board, a tremendous leadership team on administrative wise, which I'm a part of. So I'm just here to let you know that we are concerned about this. We deal with it every day. And we are going to be in Tallahassee talking about these two topics in specific next week, 2 weeks from now, for 2 days, along with other topics. And so I just want you to know that I'm here. I have I have 9 business cards that I'd like to give you, and you can reach me. And then our leadership team, you can go on to goboatingflorida.com. It'll be on there, and you can see our leadership team and what we do. And all the different businesses that are a part of our group. My job is to promote boating in the counties that I described. So I do appreciate all of your concerns. We fully understand them, and that we want good, clean, safe, available boating and anchoring. And we are very concerned, like you are, about some of these topics that the people here in the audience described. Thank you.
Thank you. We do want your business cards.
You can reach me anytime you need.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to come up and comment on this topic? All right. All right. I've done a lot of research and I want to allay this gentleman's fears. We are not out to stop the transient boaters that are going from point A to point B. That is not our intention at all. We fully understand that our hands are tied with the liveaboards because of the Florida statute. They're stopping the mayor. Oh, no. That's okay. That our hands are tied, that the definition is very skewed. So how I want to explain the liveaboard is it's very simple. And I actually had a resident contact me and ask me to come over. She's sitting back here and she was asking me what is going on. And it was the Marine unit out there making sure a vessel could go under power, because if a vessel can move either sail or power, it is, even though people are residing on the boat, a liveaboard, AKA, if you will, it is not considered a liveaboard per Florida statute. The only way it can be considered a true liveaboard if it has no way of propelling it. So we know our hands are tied there, and I'm going to talk to this gentleman in the blue shirt about all of this. However, I'd like to go into this PowerPoint presentation that I've made. Basically, what draws people to our area? It's our reputation of a clean, safe, family-friendly city, our wonderfully groomed beaches, our pristine waters, and we need to keep them that way, and it's a boater's paradise. Next, please. Changes in the water quality and clarity, the human factors. I mean, we're doing this to ourselves out here. The grass clippings being blown overboard, and we're going to talk about that in another workshop. The improper fertilization, we're going to talk about that too. Petroleum products or other pollutants that go down the storm drain, and where do they go? Right into the Gulf of Mexico. The runoff from construction sites, we're going to talk about that at a later date. The main thing that I want to tackle along with my fellow commissioners, is the marine sanitation devices being improperly used, your MSDs. I sent to all of the commissioners, and I apologize because I was running behind. I didn't get a chance to get it in the packet. I pulled all of the barrier island regulations in regards to liveaboards, anchoring, and every one of the municipalities are all over the board. They all cite liveaboards, but don't cite the full Florida definition or the state definition. So there's no meat with the potatoes there. When it comes to the MSDs, I think this is where we're going to have some help. But the section about the liveaboards is 32760, and even the Pinellas County Sheriff says there's nothing we can do about it. So it's all about the state's definition that we can't change at this point in time.
I think, Mayor, just to, so that everybody's clear, the Florida statute that he just referenced defines what a liveaboard is. A liveaboard is your houseboat. Think of a houseboat. It does not have a means of propulsion. Somebody lives in it, and it is essentially docked at a dock. The boat typically does not move. I think of Miami Vice TV show from the 80s. That's where Don Johnson lived. He lived on a liveaboard. Anybody saw that show?
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's the liveaboard. That's what is defined in Florida statutes. And Mr. Trask, our attorney, can correct me on that. The boats that are anchored that have been referenced here by some of you in the audience, those are boats that are simply anchored or moored. These boats, I think, are all anchored out here. I don't believe any of them are moored, but I'm not an expert. I know Brian Crabtree, our marina manager, I think they're all anchored. Mooring means you have to be attached to some sort of mooring device, but something like that.
Correct.
So these are folks that are living in on their boats, but they are not identified as a liveaboard. They're just simply people living, and those boats are anchored out here. And they are allowed to legally be anchored in the waters where they are anchored. Of course, as has been stated, and the mayor is going to continue in the presentation, they are required to follow considerable laws, regulations, just like we all are when we go on a boat or operate a vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry to interrupt. Mayor.
No. Thank you very much for that clarification. Can we go to the next slide? All right, what is the problem? I've been here 10 years and I've noticed the water quality has gone downhill just outside our door. So we have degraded water quality and clarity, loss of seagrasses. This adversely affects our aquatic life. And then we have our increased risk to us, the human population. If we don't put the stop to this or try to mitigate some of this, well, what happens? Well, we're going to have a potential loss of revenue with tourists. Our homeowners are going to be unhappy. Well, we have to do something. Why would we want to stay then if everything's going downhill? Our recreational boating facts, and this is from the EPA. There are 1.5 million vessels with MSDs that spend time in U.S. waters, generating 3.5 billion gallons of sewage. And this is all EPA. How much is being illegally discharged? We have no idea. Next slide, please. What is not addressed very well in any Florida statute is the MSD. And basically what it is, and that's this United States, no, what is USC?
Yeah, U.S. code.
Yeah, United
Federal
States
laws.
code. That is the definition of what that device is. Any equipment on board a vessel which is designated to receive, retain, treat, or discharge sewage, and any process to treat such sewage. There are different types of MSDs. There's 3 types, and we'll get to that next, but they all must be Coast Guard certified. Type 3 is the most common. It's basically you have a marine toilet in a boat. From there, when you flush with water, it goes to a macerator pump, which grinds it all up and then makes it into a semi-liquid, if you will, and then it puts it in a tank where that's got to be pumped off. A type 2, that's okay. Go back if you would, please. And then you have your type 2, which is less used in this area, and then you have your type 1s. The majority that you're going to find out there is a type 3. Next, please. All vessels 26 feet or more that have an enclosed cabin with sleeping capabilities must have one. Note here, with what the city manager was saying about a houseboat, every houseboat, doesn't matter the length, must have one. My boat's 25 foot. Many vessels under 26 foot have them too. Everybody's got to go to potty every now and then, depending if you're going to stay out there on the water. So our future starts now. Our most valuable resource is our water. We have to start protecting it now. The pollution on our waterways is direct pollution. And what I mean by that is it's going from your boat in the drink. Indirect pollution would be you're putting it in the storm drain. It's got to filter its way through the storm drain and then ends up in the Gulf. If we, go ahead, I wasn't finished, that's okay. If we start here on the water side, there's going to be an immediate and positive impact. If we start with the vessels that are anchored or moored in our waterways within their city limits boundary map, which is next, we will start, that's the area in blue, we will start to make an impact in our local area. Next, please. If we start at the water and work towards land, the first thing we're going to address is the medical human component. Sewage discharges can introduce disease-causing bacteria, ear infections, gastrointestinal illnesses, skin irritations, rashes, and God only knows what else. Then you have the potential illnesses from eating polluted shellfish, fish, etc. Not saying that we're there yet or anywhere close, but if we don't turn the corner, we're going to head in that direction. The reduced water quality can affect the survival of many of our aquatic organisms, affect plant life and seagrass. The environmental concerns, it harms everybody and everything. It harms us. It's going to harm the shellfish. It's going to harm the fish. Impairs water quality, affects the nutrient levels. It alters the pH of the water, decreases the available dissolved oxygen levels in the water, which the plants and the fish, everybody needs to survive. The reduced water quality can affect the health survival of many of our aquatic organisms. Next, please. Okay, let's know the law here. All vessels with MSDs, marine sanitation devices, they must be Coast Guard certified. There's a label stamped on it somewhere that it is. You just can't grab something at a Home Depot and slap it on your boat and make it work. Not legally anyway. The federal law prohibits discharge of untreated sewage in U.S. waters except for to legally discharge untreated sewage, you must be 3 miles offshore. That's Federal Clean Water Act. In all other areas, a discharge of untreated sewage is illegal. There are federal and state fines, and I'm hoping we can get something enacted. I'm hoping that there will be local municipal fines. But keep in mind, I wanted to expand on this, but I didn't want to confuse anybody. There are zones located within Florida that are NDZs, no discharge zones. And what those are, and I think there's 3 of them in Florida. There's one in Key West and one up around the Panhandle. I forget where the other one is. But what those zones are is you can't even discharge treated sewage in those areas because the area has been deemed so critical. And that's what an NDZ is. Next, please. Well, how do we affect change? Require mandatory marine sanitation device pump outs. In one state regulation, in the NDZs, it requires any vessel anchored or moored to pump off every 10 days. So I put that in our potential for us to have them pumped every 10 days. Keep in mind, we offer this as a free service at the marina. It's free if you go there. I think the furthest distance in Madeira Beach waters to it can't be more than what, Brian, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, the farthest distance to the pump out station?
Maybe a mile.
Maybe a mile? Yeah,
Maybe.
so it's
Got it
close
away.
by. but-
Maybe a mile.
Yeah, but we provide that free service. So I would like to see and we're gonna have this discussion, require proof of an MSD pump off with a receipt and date, with the signature of the person doing this, and it's got to be done every 10 days. We cannot be the occupancy police on boats. That is not our intention. We can only assume that a boat is out there, that a person is on it. We can't expend staffing to go knock on a boat and say, hey, are you there or not? So every 10 days, I think is reasonable considering the maximum size that I could figure out on these boats with 38 to 40-foot ranges, maybe a 40-gallon tank. It can't be any more than that. And we have to assume that people are on these vessels. And we also have to assume, and I hate to say this, if there's people on the boats don't go anywhere ever. Make your own assumption what they're doing with these tanks. And that's the sad part. Next, please. Okay, authority to regulate. Actually, the Florida litter law covers this a little bit, that we could do something there. Marine sanitation device, there's Florida statute 32753, which is an extensive document, and I've provided copies to the commissioners here tonight. And the big one, which is federal law, is the Clean Water Act, which makes it against the law if you pump 3 miles inland. You know, you have to be 3 miles offshore to pump untreated sewage. And then I'm hoping for some possible municipal regulations in conjunction with working with the city attorney to make sure that if we can go through with this, it's got some teeth. The primary enforcement agencies, obviously the Coast Guard Federal, they're not going to come out here and check the boats. We can't expect them to do that. They have a global concern to deal with. We have FWC would be the state regulatory agency. We're under contract with the Pinellas County Marine Unit. And then we have the Madeira Beach Code Enforcement Municipal possible future helping us out with the potential enforcement if we can get something going forward here. The big thing, how would you know that this is occurring? It's nearly impossible to catch someone in the act of this type of an illegal activity. And why is that? We're out there on boats. All they have to do is look around, have a lookout, pump off at night, put it in a bucket, throw it overboard. You know, there's multiple things that could happen here. Have you ever, our boaters ever operated a macerator pump? I mean, unless you're physically on the boat, I mean, you can't hear it outside the boat. You really can't. So you wouldn't know unless you're seeing shards of toilet paper and other ... floating by you as you're out there on your raft having a cold beverage. So you would not know that this is going on. Next, please. Local ordinance proposed for all vessels anchored or moored within our waters, refer to the boundary map. Let's enact an ordinance as long as the city attorney is in concert with us to where we make them go to the marina every 10 days. I think that's a simple request, you know. And then the caveat to that is if they don't have a propulsion system to go to the marina, then by Florida statute, they're considered a live aboard. And then our statute would kick in that you have to be in a C4 marina district. I believe how it reads. But we're not out to do that. We want everybody to enjoy the waterways, but we have to be responsible about things. And I don't think we have some responsibility in some areas. I mean, the boats have been there for weeks. I mean, I see the one lady back here, Miss Hartman, who she knows and she's aware of this. Keep in mind, the city offers pre-pump outs. I am sure it wouldn't be difficult for Brian back there to develop just an Excel spreadsheet, something along the lines to keep track of things. We only have about 8 or 9 vessels out there. Next, please. Party, please. The lack of compliance. Obviously, the first thing we need to do, it's got to be education. We have to tell people, look, this is wrong. This is why, you know, you're sitting out here living on this boat. Are you going to hop in the water and swim around where you just discharged your not so nice ingredients. So I would like to see the first fence, a documented verbal warning. That way you know that you've talked to this person, and then along with education. From there, the fines have to be significant or nothing will change. If we're gonna just do a slap on the wrist, they're gonna be okay with that. And these are just proposed, these are numbers I put together, just putting numbers together. Next, please. For the commissioners, questions, comments, and discussion. Do we want to reintroduce I'd be okay with that. We already did public. Do you want, would the public like to say anything on this before we discuss? Please come up, sir. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
John Connolly. Sounded great. But we are all here in the Barrier Islands. I don't think the pump out should just be limited to the 9 boats that are in Madeira Beach. I think at this point, we should encumber all of what is there. And I don't think there's that many more. Because it's all about the water. It's just not, I just don't want to just do this section. I want to do the whole section.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I'll respond back to you, but go ahead back to your seat. Okay, so keep in mind, we can only regulate the Madeira Beach water boundary map. However, if we can come to a consensus and get something done, just like it started then in St. Pete Beach with the no smoking and the no electric bikes, I would be more than happy to take this to the Big C. And I was at a short meeting today with a couple of the mayors, and they thought it was an excellent idea, and they would jump on board with us. But you're right. We have to look at this globally. However, we're restricted by that blue area. We have no jurisdiction to be able to do anything outside of that area, but we have to, no, absolutely, thank you, but we have to start somewhere. Is there any other public comment you'd like to come back? Please, sir.
I'll make it quick. And thank you for the presentation and the concern and all the comments from the audience. In addition to the pump out, which is just one portion of it, my concern is I'm going to call it illegal parking, illegal docking. I know if I leave my car out here in a space and I don't pay the meter, I get towed. I'm not sure why that would be allowed for the boats out there when folks right across the way are paying $500, $600, $700, $1,000 a month to illegally dock their boats. So if possible, there could be some other teeth, if you will, into the rule, because it's a fairness issue. Folks across the way are paying $20,000 in property taxes to dock their boat. These folks are able to do it for nothing. So, we run into a fairness issue as well, because again, I saw it swell up to 21 plus boats over COVID. And that is the concern. That is the concern as the neighbor, but that's the concern from Madeira Beach. So thank you.
No, thank you. The only way that we could do something like that, and we don't have enough acreage on the water, would be a mooring field. And then we would have to have what do they call them, a dock master to go out there and collect fees, and that we don't have enough acreage to be able to do a mooring field, and that would be the only way. But I understand what you're saying, but we can't regulate where people.
Florida statutes just do not allow us to do that.
Yes.
They are open and free waters for any individual to enjoy, so we are prohibited. The only way to do that would be to ask for a change in Florida statutes to allow cities to regulate, have ordinances to regulate certain behaviors that may occur on boats, aside from, obviously, you can't litter, et cetera, you can't create noise, et cetera, but in terms of they can legally be allowed to anchor out there, there is nothing that we can do currently under Florida law to not allow that.
Yeah. One last little thing, and I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, please.
I pulled via a friend of mine that does maritime law, pulled quite a bit of case law on this, and I'd be more than happy to share with Mr. Trask what other municipalities have done throughout the state, because there are, and again, I'm not an attorney and I don't know the exact enforcement rules, but he is. And he did it as a favor. He pulled some case law knowing what I'm going through, and I'll be more than happy to share it to help, you know, expedite.
All of the commissioners have already been sent that.
Oh, they have.
information.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
And, cause, I thought there was some good stuff in there. Yeah.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
You pointed out, Mayor, section
Yes.
three, I think 327.53,
Mhm.
that was distributed to everyone up here.
Yes.
That does allow for local regulation for the pump outs and obtaining approval from, I think it's the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission,
Yeah.
that they would need to approve such an ordinance if in fact that is allowed. But I think where I think you're headed is to direct the city attorney to likely kind of review, study, research that, and come back with an ordinance for your review through the public hearings and a vote on that.
Yeah, none of us want to do anything that's going to get the city in trouble, but however, the environment's in trouble. So we have to take a stand somewhere. And like I said, I did a draft proposal of changes just for everyone here to eyeball it. Just throw some ideas out there to the commissioners. I mean, this is foreign area for me, but we have environmental concerns that we're gonna have to deal with here somewhere. I mean, we want to have a legacy to leave our family members. And if the water quality keeps going downhill, well, who's going to first want to live here? And two, who's going to want to come here? So we have to start somewhere. Let's start with the city of Madeira Beach. I will go to the Barrier Island Council, and two of the mayors I spoke to today was like, well, yes. So
I'm sorry, I meant to clarify, it's section 327.6.60 local regulations. I don't know if we have a copy on here, but that's what allows, and I think Mr. Trask can further elaborate, if not now at a future meeting, but that's where section 4 allows local governments to enact regulations requiring to compliance with the marine sanitation requirements in Florida statutes.
and I just think it's the right thing to do. We offer the service for free. All you have to do is put your sail up, put your kicker motor on, or drive your power boat over and pump off. It's free.
And in the interim, what we can do is, I'll get with Sergeant Blair with the Marine unit. We've discussed this at length also, and with the, our contact, the Captain Liner that oversees our agreement, and provide that information to all of the, boats that are anchored out here so that they are aware. I'm guessing probably most of them are, but we'll reiterate, hey, there's a free pump out here at the Madeira Beach Marina.
Commissioners, what do you think?
So I have a little bit of comment on this. As I recall, several years ago, when the ordinance that we now have was enacted, it's not really an enforceable ordinance as it's written, and the boats just moved. So, and I'm pretty certain on this, they moved from the blue area to the gray area. Right, because they're smart. So they just moved their boat over. And I don't think that it would be a bad idea to have an ordinance. And it would be wonderful to go to the state and have the law changed so that we have more control. And I've said it in the past, and people at the back might not like this, but if we are really looking for a solution where you can save the waterways, we need a pump out boat. And we need to just go every 8 days, 10 days, whatever, and offer to pump the boats out. I don't foresee it being really feasible that the boats are going to, because they have not come in and pump out, they're just going to move to a different area. You're still going to see them. They're still going to be what we would think is our waterway, but it's not. And I think that having the boat that could go out and pump the boats would be inexpensive, maybe. I have no idea. I do believe that at one time we had some sort of cost on what that would cost the city, but the residents that I hear, they're not happy with just the thought that you're pumping it. out, right? That the boats are sitting out there and they're pumping. To me, that is the only way that we would really be able to get them, because they're just going to move from the blue to the gray, and you cannot enforce the gray area.
That would be, well, that would be Pinellas County, and
Unless-
I hate to put the onus on someone else for our benefit, but so be it initially until we can get everybody on board.
It didn't change. I'm not trying to be negative
No, no,
because
no,
that's
no.
not my intent.
no,
I
no.
think an ordinance that is enforceable would be fantastic. I just think that given the history of when the previous ordinance was enacted, the board that sat up here, the commission, and voted for that ordinance, it wasn't an enforceable ordinance. But the boaters didn't really know that, and they just moved their boats. So if we are, my opinion is, if we're really looking for a solution for what residents within our community are dissatisfied with, and that is one of the things they're dissatisfied with, that is the possibility that boats are discharging into the waterways. A pump out boat would be a option to eliminate that issue.
Mayor, can I jump in and
Oh,
say
please,
a
sir.
couple of words?
Please, sir.
Because I think we're going down the wrong path. And I just want to bring us back to that statute, Mayor, that you were quoting from and that the city manager was quoting from, Florida Statute 327.60. It does not allow us to regulate any vessel. It's very, very specific as to the vessels that we can regulate. And I'm just going to read from two of the paragraphs, so I want to bring it back to the vessels we can regulate, because it's not any. Paragraph 4A says, a local government may enact and enforce regulations that require owners or operators of vessels or floating structures subject to the marine sanitation requirements of section 32753. So I'm going to stop right there. What are those? If you go to section 32753, it mentions two types. A vessel over 26 feet in length that has an enclosed cabin with berthing facilities, and houseboats. So that particular section of the statute only allows you to regulate those two types of vessels. So if it's over 26 feet and it doesn't have an enclosed cabin, you can't regulate it. If it's under 26 feet, you can't regulate it. If it's not a houseboat, you can't regulate it. That section of the statute allows you to require boats that meet those requirements to provide proof of proper sewage disposal by means of approval such sewage pump out service, approved sewage pump out facility, or approved waste reception facility when anchored or moored for more than 10 days within 3 areas, and they're listed there in the statute. The other encompassing portion of the statute, and it may be something else that we want to look to, we want to get past those requirements. There's kind of a catch-all section in the statute, 4D. This subsection does not prohibit a local government from enacting or enforcing such sewage pump-out requirements for liveaboard vessels, floating structures, and commercial vessels, excluding commercial fishing vessels within any areas of its jurisdiction. So again, that portion of the statute is saying you can only regulate liveaboards, floating structures, and commercial vessels. So if it doesn't fit within the definitions of those three things, we can't regulate it. So if it fits within those confines, sure, we can prepare a code provision. And I think that there was a suggestion that it would need to be approved. Yes, the statute requires us to send it to the commission, the FWC, for consideration and approval before we could adopt it here. So we would provide them with a draft for them to take a look at. But I really don't want us to go down this path that we're going to fix all these problems. We're not going to fix any of those problems, okay? Because they don't have to do with those three things that have been mentioned in the statute. So if you want to focus on liveaboards, floating structures, and commercial vessels, I think there's a good discussion that could be had there, but not anything else.
So the boats that are anchored out here do not meet any of these three That's what we would need to determine.
Right, if they were liveaboard vessels, they don't have propulsion or a sail. So if they have a
That's not-
propulsion or a sail,
They're not.
they're not liveaboard.
Hmm.
Floating structures is defined in the statute. Let me just read that to you real quick because it's an odd definition.
The ordinance that was referenced by Commissioner Brooks from 2019 looks like it attempted to include and define the anchored boats out here as liveaboard, because that appears to be the intent, or was.
So, floating structure is defined in the statute. It says floating structure means a floating entity with or without accommodations built thereon, which is not primarily used as a means of transportation on water, but serves purposes or provides services typically associated with a structure or other improvement to real property. The term includes, but is not limited to, an entity used as a residence, place of business with public access, a hotel or motel, a restaurant or lounge, a clubhouse, a meeting facility, a storage or parking facility, or a mining platform, dredge, dragline, or similar facility. You can get the idea. I'm not going to read the rest of that definition. So these boats out here don't meet the floating structure definition, probably don't meet the liveaboard. And if it's a commercial vessel, I mean, we could probably take a look at that, but we would have to determine that it's not a commercial fishing vessel. So if it was used for some other purpose, and I don't know what other commercial vessels are, maybe Brian could tell us, but if they're not one of those three things, we're really spinning our wheels. And so,
Now, are you talking about the liveaboard, or are you talking about our ability to enact an ordinance to force them to pump off every 10 days?
yeah, I'm talking about both of those.
Oh,
Yeah, both sections require, well, in the first section 4A, it requires it to be a 26-foot vessel in length, which has enclosed cabin or berthing facilities. And the other one was houseboat.
Hmm.
So you can require them to provide proof of proper sewage disposal if they meet one of those two definitions. And then the other one, the catch-all, which is the bigger one, picks up liveaboards, floating structures, and commercial vessels.
so
So
what you're
you-
saying is over 26-foot houseboat, we could regulate the marine sanitation device pump off.
You could require them to provide you with proof of proper sewage disposal means, so long as they're anchored for more than 10 days
Okay.
and they fit within one of the three no discharge zones.
No.
Mayor, I didn't map out where these no discharge zones are, so. I
They're
don't-
not around here.
Okay,
They're
so if
not.
they're not one of the three, then 4A doesn't apply at all because it has to be within one of those areas.
They're all over 26 and they all have enclosed cabins. Sorry to speak out, but.
Yeah. No, they are. They are.
So if it's not within if this is not a no discharge zone out here,
It's not.
then we don't look at 4A at all.
Understand.
So we have to look at 4D, and that is liveaboards, floating structures, and commercial vessels as defined by the statute. So we can regulate those three.
If I recall correctly, the previous ordinance was written that over a certain amount of days, they had to move, but it was unenforceable,
Correct.
as Commissioner Brooks had mentioned. With everything discussed, I'm thinking our best alternative is to work with the Marine Industry Association with their lobbyists. We have to get our lobbyists. This is a state issue. We need to be given control to be able to do that. And that means changing some definitions or some Florida statutes, so be it. But
There is
we just
one-
don't have the authority.
There is one other option, and that option was being pursued by the city of Clearwater and the city of Bel Air Bluffs. Bel Air Bluffs is pulled out of it, but, and I think the city of Clearwater is moving forward with it, is anchoring limitation areas. where you set aside a specific area within the jurisdictional limits of the city and you mark it off by boundaries and you require people, if they're going to park their or anchor their boats there, you don't moor, you anchor, then they have to move their boat every 45 days. That's what the statute says. So, and that I really don't think is a good option for you because all they have to do is run their boat around in a circle and they've moved it. And so they can stay there another 45 days. And what I think what the FWC officers are seeing is that they can just check their GPSs and see on their boats and see whether they've moved or not. And that's all the evidence that they need to show that it's moved. So I really don't think that that's an option. You've mentioned the mooring fields, anchoring limitation, and then this is the only other option. So
So there's nothing we can do to force the MSD pump offs?
no.
Nothing.
It's all preempted to the state. They only allow us these little tiny slivers to, if you can fit your regulation within these confines, we'll allow you to do it. It's kind of like little exceptions that they've created.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. If the Clean Water Act is federal law and that states you have to pump 3 miles offshore and obviously they're pumping off here, we have no meat in the game there with the federal law that we can enact something that is in concert with federal law to force them to pump off. There's
So-
nothing there.
Yeah, I'd not researched that. My gut reaction is if it's federal law, it needs to be enforced federally. If it's state law, it needs to be enforced by state officers. So I doubt that.
Wow.
Let's
But-
just get a pump out boat.
Get a pump.
No, that's too
And-
convenient for them.
Mayor
It's
and Commissioner.
convenient, but it's a wonderful option and at one time, I don't know, and I'm not advocating anybody doing a bunch of research, but there was a grant to assist in purchasing it. And
Yeah.
all I know is in the going on 9 years that I've been in Madeira Beach, the one thing that I've heard over and over and over again in meetings from residents is not that they dislike the boats, some do, but that they dislike the idea, even though to my knowledge, no one's ever caught anyone on video dumping their waste because people are smart. But that has been a constant complaint in the city is that the boats are there and they know they're discharging their sewage or they believe they are. And I just stand by a boat would be an option to, it may be the easy way out for the boater that's not moving his boat, but do we want clean water? Or do we want to stand on our high ground because we don't want to make it easy for them? That's all.
So Krabby, did you?
So there was a grant that we did obtain, but the Board of Commission at the time rejected the grant because they felt it was going to be too expensive to operate and maintain and pay someone to go do this at all times. So that grant actually wound up at Lighthouse Point Marina is where that boat was kept, the pump out boat. And then until about maybe 6-8 months ago, that boat's now not in operation. I called them to see where it's at, what happened with it, and I haven't got a response back from them. So it's an option that if the boat's still there and it's just not operating, because the grant requires you, the CVA grant, which is a Clean Vessel Act grant, requires you to report for 5 years. So all our pump outs at the marina that we get, I have to do quarterly reports every month about how many boats, how many out-of-state vessels, how many gallons of sewage we pump. So after that 5 years, the boat can kind of just almost go away. So I'm actually trying to find out where it went, what happened to it, where's that. Gulfport still has one that they use at their mooring field, but those grants are selected like to a body of water. So there's only so many, let's say square footage that boat would have to go. So if we got it here, we could wind up going all the way to Treasure Island to have to pump boats out and things like that also. So it just depends on the area that your grant is for Bogosiega Bay and where all you'd have to go.
So would there be a possibility if Lighthouse still has the boat, is it past it would be past their 5 years now, right?
Yeah,
That maybe if they're not using it, there'd be a consideration of selling it? If it's
there's
still there?
possibility. I reached out to them and
yeah.
I'm looking to find out where it even went, to be honest with you. So
It's an option.
The question I would have on a pump out boat is, would that attract more boaters to anchor in our waters?
I mean, I watch a lot of the boats there. I mean, I like driving over the water. So when I come home or when I leave, and there are a lot of boats, I shouldn't say a lot, there are boats that drop anchor and they stay for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they leave and come back. And during COVID, there were a lot more boats out there, but they were more operational boats. is
Well,
maybe the right-
that's what it's intended for, you know.
Right,
the-
and they would come and go, and some would stay for longer, but they moved around.
Right. Now, that's not the problem, but I'm sure, would word get around just anchor up here in Madeira Beach, take care of everything.
Robin, would you get a hold of the Pinellas County Marine Supervisor and run this by him and see what their take
Sure.
is?
Well, I mean, the pump out boat or the whole conversation?
The conversation of forcing the pump out every 10 days and we have a.
Yeah, and so I'll follow up again, but last year the sheriff's council, their legal council did give a presentation to the cities that eventually led to what Mr. Trask stated about the anchoring field up in Clearwater. Their take was that, similar to what Mr. Trask said, we are powerless to be able to do anything. That was their interpretation. Now, at the time, the main focus was on the derelict or abandoned vessels that was brought up earlier. And they are very well managing that. There were 22 that were removed out of our area, including Hurricane Hole, during that process throughout late 22, early 23. So that was the huge focus on their part. But the presentation and their take was, yeah, we cannot, unless you have a mooring field or an anchoring area, cities, you cannot regulate anything. We're not the only, obviously, Clearwater and St. Petersburg were the two that were dealing with the most. I actually didn't realize St. Petersburg had such an issue, but they do over on the Tampa Bay side with just a variety of issues. So I'll follow up again, but it's just, as Mr. Trask said, that's what the determination was at that time. The only way to change it is to try to change state statute.
May I make a suggestion to take this to the Big C now and move forward as a collective body? And if we can
Absolutely.
work with the Marine Industries Association, that'll be one more feather in your cap, as long as you're in the same, with your lobbyists, as long as you agree with what we're trying to do here.
Bring it to the group, sure.
If you could come up to the microphone, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Our whole position is safe, fun boating. That's our deal. We want the boating industry to survive and to flourish. We want more transoms on the water, so the service teams can, transom on the water equates to service. And so for us, that's what our goal is. We are very concerned that the derelict vessel situation, and I can't blame someone. I mean, who can buy in Longboat Key, because it's just a anchoring that I do a lot, and then up in Manatee River. But there were boats that were, I mean, I would go anchor. I would stay there for 3 or 4 days, and I'd go back to St. Pete Marina, and then I was in Twin Dolphin up the river, and I'd go and years the same boat would be there. Like, and I'm my wife and I are in all of our companies. Like, there's no way that guy's pumping out. It just didn't happen. And I don't even know if the boat can transit. That's a whole nother story of its own. It has to be able to transit to get to your pump out. So is that capable? Is that possible? Because that was an interesting comment. If it can't transit itself, then it doesn't become a houseboat. And that you do have jurisdiction over. If it can't in order to have a boat in St. Pete Marina, in the harborage, it has to be able to transit. It's got to be able to get out of the way. Otherwise, you're not allowed to be there. And that's really important for lots of reasons. So our whole goal is simply to improve the boating industry and to have it prosper. And consequently, everybody involved in that endeavor has to do it correctly. That's our position. That's our only position. And when we we have a lobbyist, like I told you, in our meeting down and when we met with all the 7 associations in Stewart, the NMMA lobbyist was there as well. And we had 4 At our dinner, we had 5 people from legislature came to our dinner. We had a chance to talk to them all. Yeah, I'm telling you that the state of Florida is very serious about this. They want to do it right. They absolutely do. And I'll be at my first boating days up in Tallahassee, like I told you, February 5, 6, and 7. And so I'll have some more information if you would like to, I'll talk to you later. You got my card, but I'll be back, like on the 8th or 9th. So we are just about promoting good, safe boating and for people to do it right. Because we know that when people don't do it right, the general public doesn't appreciate that in the boating community. They don't like the boating community not obeying the rules. I truly understand what everybody in this room believes. I've been boating in these waters for 45 years, so I get it. And we get it as an industry. And so that's all. I'll do what I can. I'll do what I can. I'll take anything back to leadership for sure. And I'll bring anything to you. If you all want to give me a jingle, I'll take anything to Tallahassee that I'm able to spend time talking about.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, commissioners?
Well, I definitely like your idea of the 10-day. Unfortunately, we can't really do anything right now with that. I would be hopefully that we could have a local ordinance like that where we could check all the vessels and make sure they're adhering to our local ordinance. Also, I would like to see if we could reach out to St. Pete College for more testing of the waters, just so that we have more ammunition that we can take to the state and say that we need our own local statutes. I also think that unreasonable anchoring, and I believe a couple brought this up also. And if you look at it, it's 327.44, the Florida statute. Anchoring, mooring under bridges or adjacent to heavily traveled channels constitutes interference if unreasonable under the circumstances. Now, we could go out there and I know they can come back, yes, but how many times will they come back? There are, from what I've seen before, vessels that are obstructing the waterways. And if we could enforce that more, because we can, that would be another weapon that we could use to help clean up our waterways also. I remember back when the bay was tested by St. Pete College, and the fecal matter and the microplastics in that water was so high, they were just astonished. Now, that was before 2022 when we had a lot more of the vessels that were out there. But still, it's going to show you if we could reach out to St. Pete College.
Do you think they do water testing?
Oh, yeah.
There's- Yeah, the county
Yes.
does regularly. I mean, they do the bay as well as they do more of the Gulf, I think, but they'll bay and we'll reach out to, I don't think there have been any warnings recently. I think the public is alerted when, if there's a sewage spill, there's testing that is done, which we have had a couple, or when the algae bloom starts to rear its ugliness around us.
I would like to know exactly what the water
Quality or testing.
if we could get that in and have that as ammunition.
Yeah.
And also, just one more thing, the unreasonable anchoring of the vessels, things that we have control over right now that we could collect and start that way. So, that's all. Thank you.
And I know, Mayor, you've been, I think, to a few, in the Big C meetings, there's been at least one presentation regarding an entity that received a grant to study water quality, specifically nutrients. So there are other organizations that have been and will continue to do so. So there's additional information we can obtain.
I'm sure we would all like to know the water quality of the Gulf versus the water quality of the intercoastal waters. I think that's going to be the key factor here. And then from there, Maybe we can get it turned into a no discharge zone, and then that gives us the teeth. We have to start somewhere. Commissioners, any other comments on this? All right. I guess we'll
One-
move on to the next item.
One quick
then.
thing I wanted to add, you guys were talking about sampling. If you go to Tampa Bay Water Atlas and look up Boca Ciega Bay, they have a whole bunch of data points in there of sampling. They've been sampling since like 1971. So if you Google that, it'll pop up and it'll let you look at some data and it'll show you
Say
what
that again, Tampa what?
Tampa
called-
Bay Water
Atlas.
Atlas. Yeah, I think they spoke also at one of the Big C meetings last year. That's who I couldn't think of. There's been two or three that have a considerable amount of data out there. We'll provide that, and we'll actually put that on our website as well for the public to see. So thank you, Marcy. Yeah, I
You're
know that there's several of them out there.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. We have FEMA/city participation in mitigation, restoration, flooding prevention programs.
So Mayor, as this topic we've discussed prior workshops, and as I think I've shared with each one of you, due to the two floods, and I guess there was a flood a few years ago, we continue to hear from residents looking for what can the city do to alleviate some of the flooding. We know that there is street flooding on very high tides, certain times of the year. But wanted to mention a decade ago, the city as we participated over the years in different FEMA grant programs. They do have a variety of them. I included in the packet a sample of a safe room grant program. Within the last few months, the commission approved another program where we received funding for our stormwater pump that Public Works maintains. So there's a variety of those. There's the one that residents are inquiring about refers to housing assistance to be able to demolish and reconstruct your home or even elevate your home. Those grant programs are somewhat complex in terms of all of the requirements. A decade ago, Madeira Beach participated in that. As I've shared with each of you there and provided emails, there are some outstanding issues. We are working to correct them. We still have some things to correct with the Florida Division of Emergency Management that administers the grants from FEMA to cities and counties, and then we in turn provide the funding to the property owner. So we've had issues with those, as I've explained, relating to exceeding the square footage that was allowed, to a properties not obtaining flood insurance as they're required. So we are working with those. We received a letter nearly 2 years ago from FDEM asking for us to reimburse a part of a grant that we had paid out to a property owner. We have had our legal review, had discussions with FDEM. Those kind of stopped because we came to an impasse. I was contacted in November by FDEM, spoke with them and stated, give us some time to to go through, compile everything. I was not aware of the extent of it. I know that Mr. Trask has provided updates here, but there's a lot behind this where we need to get, there's an awful lot of paperwork information that we need to bring together just internally from us, from our community development department, our finance department, to then determine where are we, get a response back to FDEM and bring these grants to a closure. We hope to be able to do that. I'm hoping within the next 2 months. These have been ongoing for some time. So if we'll get those. What we're looking from you is really direction. I'm under the impression that you would like, or based on resident input, to participate in this going forward, meaning the grant programs to allow property owners to, and I think Marcy can correct me, to flood-proof the home or participate in the housing grant programs that FEMA through the Florida Division of Emergency Management provides. So I know that we have some outstanding issues, and Mr. Trask may chime in But that's where we are with that process. But that's what the purpose of this discussion is. In your packet, there is a sample of one of the grants, I think approved or adopted back in 2014, just to give you an idea of the extent of what the program does, but has a couple of charts of this particular grant, I think was for $172,000. But keep in mind that only covers a portion of the cost of either elevating or demolishing and reconstructing essentially a flood-prone home or structure. So the costs for that obviously have just increased, just as construction costs have increased over the last decade. I think, Marcy, the estimates are $500 to $600 a square foot for new construction. So trying to rebuild your house, you're looking at realistically about $500,000 on up to be able to do that. The FEMA grants, if we were to, again, be and I think I may not be using the right term, a subrecipient of the grant to pass through to our property owners, the max of that grant is probably 225,000 or 250 in that range. So again, that does cover a portion of the total cost. But we don't want to, we currently do not provide that. We're not involved in that. We are part of a Pinellas County group that can provide those, but we will, again, based on your direction, if that's where you would like us to go, we can get to that point. As I believe I've stated to, I think, all of you, we would need to have a dedicated consultant likely to manage that for us. And that probably will alleviate any of issues that happened with the grants. I will tell you, and I think Mr. Trask and Marcy have more data information, but some of those dealt again with the interpretations of square footage that changed. We were using, or what we provided based on the applications from the property owners and contractors to FDEM, we obtained from the Pinellas County Property Appraiser's Office. Here's the square footage. Then I guess going forward, even years later, FDEM came back and said, that's not the right square footage, even though that had been provided to them. So that's been the source of a little bit of the issue with at least a few of the properties that did receive those grants. And I believe we also still have money that we have not been reimbursed from FEMA that is still part of this, trying to get all of this resolved and completed and, so we can move forward.
Yeah, and to be clear, when you mentioned Pinellas County, these grants have to come through the city of Madeira Beach. So we do have a working group that we talk about these type things, what other municipalities are experiencing, how they're dealing with all kinds of flooding issues. But when it comes to the grants, it has to be sponsored by the city of Madeira Beach if you live within the limits. It wouldn't be something the county can do because people have asked that before, so.
So you mentioned that we would have an officer or somebody to monitor the whole process. Do you really think that's what happened with the ones that were unresolved? Nobody was closely
I think, no, we
monitoring the
were,
process?
but I think just changes that happened and we had different staff that are no longer here. I'm just kind of speculating as to what may have happened.
And would that be a brand new employee or would that be an employee from one of our departments that we already have?
No, I think it would be, I'm referring to a brand new position,
brand new position.
whether it's an employee or somebody that we contract with
And would
to manage.
would the grant cover that?
I
salary?
believe it covers the majority of it. I'd have to look
Yeah.
specifically.
Otherwise, we'd have to budget a whole
Right.
nother employee.
I think Marcy,
Yeah, so when the grant, there's a couple of different processes to this. First of all, there's getting the word out there and soliciting people to want to be a part of the grant. So typically what the city of Madeira Beach did in the past is they consulted with a firm whose name is skipping me right now, but they prepared the grant, which is a pretty arduous thing to do for the individual properties. So it's always better to go with the subconsultants who do that day in and day out. It's what they know how to do. They're more agile at it. They understand the process of working with FDM to get those submitted. So that would definitely be contracted out. It is my understanding that that portion of it is reimbursed by FEMA. Once it were to go into construction management of it, FEMA does provide an allotment of spend per grant awarded for management of it that can be reimbursed. And that grant does cover the, like getting your plans done, any of your, if you're out of your house for X amount of months, it's included in that. So when you look at the 220 they give you, it does get spread out over various, components that are involved in the holistic approach. It's not just, 220 towards construction. It gets spread out. So that eats into the money that actually goes towards construction. So just something to keep in mind as we talk about these.
Thank you.
Robin, this all happened back in 2012,
Well, I think
approximately?
approximately from like 2012 to 2015. Again, the grant, some of the sample that I provided is from 2014 is when that one was adopted. So right around that time
Yeah.
period.
So the number they have, the year that they have is when they were like written and presented. By the time they were awarded and went into construction, some of those you're looking at 2015, 2016. So that's why you see like a 2012, 2013 date. Because by the time it actually went full circle and was actually able to start, having plans drawn and things like that, you're 2 or 3 years later. Yeah. So that's why the dates seem kind of spread out.
I looked into this about 10 years ago. And had multiple conversations with a consultant. And if I recall, you had to have proof of being flooded 3 times in a 5-year period, over $15,000 in damages, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. Which we could not do that. I have had conversations with multiple residents that have gone through the process back when it was active, and it's very restrictive. And most of them will say that, I wish I never got involved with it. Now, that being said, that's at their risk and that's at their choice. I don't understand as the intermediary how the city could be due any funds. I think if we were to talk about implementing this again, we'd have to figure out a way that's, when the federal government issues the funds, then it would be issued to the applicant.
So unfortunately, it's mandated how they're managed. So it's a pass-through system. What happens is we would submit our application to FDM along with everybody else in the state. FDM would review everything they got and say, okay, we really think these ones are worth it. Then they send those to FEMA. FEMA reviews them and go, oh, we agree, we're going to award all these. And it comes back down to FDM. Then they give it to us. Once that happens, the homeowner first has to spend their money. So they go out and they have an architect do the drawings and they spend 20 grand. They bring us the plans, proof that they paid, then we pay them the 20 grand. Then we take all that data and then our cash check showing that we paid them and send that to FDM. Then they look at it and then they reimburse us and then it goes all back up the chain again. And that is the required path. There's no FEMA one that would not be a reimbursement grant that would work like that. I know that FEMA is trying to become more agile, but to date, I've not heard of any program that deviates from that process. So
I can't see how we can be held hostage for 2 years. And I mean, they're not being good stewards, they're not being good partners if they're saying that if you do this and you pay these monies out based on all the approvals, we're not going to reimburse you because a box wasn't checked properly or the square footage or whatever. That once it's approved, it's approved. You release the money once it's approved. You can't come back later and say, well, we made a mistake and it's not approved. And if we're going to get into that situation, I would not be in
and
favor.
it's
That's
subjective.
exactly what they did.
Yeah.
That's what they did. That's FEMA. I mean, not to, but in the years that I was just up the street, it sometimes took 4 or 5 years. Even when I went to Georgia, the first large payment that came into our small city was a reimbursement from a storm in 2016. And I arrived in 2019. So it's just the way that they have been for some reason.
And it's there's components of it too that are subjective. It's not just the, oh, the square footage is off or that's correct. It's also them looking at the home and going, yeah, there's no way you built this for 725, you know? So there's also that component too. And, you know, we drive
Well,
around. and we
That's
see-
my experience. I mean, they had a patio. They're not allowed to have a patio.
Don't get the
Right,
patio back.
Too restrictive.
And, you know, living on a barrier island, we require deep foundations. That's a huge chunk of money. So by the time, if it were me, I would say, FEMA, why don't you let people build their home? We send you an elevation cert. You know that they've elevated their home out of the flood. They've done everything right. Then just cut them a $220,000 check and be done with
That'd
it.
be
That's all they
easy.
care about. Who cares if you put marble or, that's just my personal opinion. I feel like there's a different way to do this, but it's just simply not being done that way.
So just to we're going to get what we need to get resolved, and then, as I said, hopefully within the next 2 months. I'll keep all of you updated. And then we'll determine where, I mean, after that, what is your kind of direction, your pleasure for us to proceed or not to proceed, but it's not something that can be done, again, as Marcy stated, even we'd have to go out and kind of speak with property owners and determine what their, I think, capacity is, and we would have to be very clear in explaining it also. I think that's key as well.
So I have a question. The letter that came from FEMA to us demanding the $92,000. If we don't comply, if we, hypothetically, we were not able to comply or give them what they want, and we had to write them that check for $92,000, can we lean back onto the property? Because it's a $3 million house.
So we have an agreement with the property owner in addition to the grant agreement that you're seeing in the packet. And so they are legally obligated to comply with that agreement.
Okay.
The problem that we run into is the statute of limitations. So, and most of these statute of limitations are 5 years. So if it's outside the 5-year time frame, they may owe it, but they have no legal obligation to pay it, and we would not be successful in going after it.
Well, and
So-
I don't think the same owner even owns it
Right.
as that got the money, so
It doesn't matter. Our contract is with an individual.
right.
It's not with the property.
the property.
Yeah, and so whether that individual has sold the house and moved to Atlanta, for example, then we would still have a cause of action against them. So, but it's all about the contract itself. It's a contract action. So,
Would the process allow you to lien the property until you're paid? So that if they were to sell it, it's out against the
so
owner?
I don't remember the specifics of each one of these agreements, but my gut reaction is no, that there was no provision in it for liening.
But is that something that can be written in to the contract?
Only if FEMA and FDEM allow for that. Because
Well, that would be
they're
worth investigating anyway.
I'm sorry?
That would be worth investigating, that's all.
Sure, absolutely.
And the conversation that I had with FDEM was that they were contemplating filing liens against some of these homes. And again, whether that doesn't necessarily involve us directly, but
How could they file a lien
that's what I didn't ask any of the.
if they didn't provide the money?
That's why I said it's just, I was kind of like, okay, if that's what you're gonna do.
If they paid the city, they could file a lien.
Right. That's what I didn't understand. I know out of Mr. Trask's firm, Rob Eschenfelder has spent many hours, conversations, emails back and forth. And as I said, eventually it just got to an impasse and stopped. And so we need to kind of go back, reel it in and get this resolved. He's done a great job getting and trying to resolve that. It's just been very interesting. But we will work to get this resolved.
I mean, my gut feeling is if you could secure, you'd have to have security on the money some way or the other. It's not fair to spend the city's money, all the other residents' money for one property and then not get reimbursed from the federal government. I don't think we want to be involved in that. But I think the anything we can do to help residents raise their homes, God, we want to do that. This was a great program. It's just misdirected.
And it is something I think again, back to the big C to address, Treasure Island, they've started their Elevate Treasure Island to, again, look to elevate. But you can elevate city streets and rights of way, but that really doesn't help you unless the properties next to them are elevated. So they are going to go through a process to, I don't know the details. I haven't spoken with them, and they're about to go through a change with their administrator, but I'm sure they're looking at likely some of these grants, because otherwise, how do you, I don't imagine that they or us, I mean, would allocate, I guess you could, here's $1 million, we're gonna issue grants directly, not look to be reimbursed from FEMA. But again, I'm not advocating or saying that's available, but anyway, they must be looking through this in order to provide information or encourage those folks to elevate their homes. So we'll find out more with what Treasurer, because I think we're all in the same position. I think they flood a little bit more perhaps than we do. Andrew Morris has some great maps that we have for our historical flooding, but it sounds like in the time I've been here, it seems like Treasure Island, you get a moderate rainstorm and Gulf Boulevard's underwater. I know I've had to take a detour a couple of times in my time here, and that's just during a moderate rainstorm. So we'll find out more and then certainly bring all that information back.
And the good news is the engineering firm that's helping Treasure Island kind of lead that charge is also the same engineering firm that's preparing our watershed management plan. So like a month and a half ago, we actually met with them to better understand what Treasure Island was doing. Obviously, at the time, they were still in some design stuff and running numbers and couldn't really fully share everything with us. But they did said, you're looking out at their projections for raising the roads are like you're looking at 2070 because you do it incrementally. You raise it a little bit, you get the lifespan out of it, 20 years go by, then you raise it a little more. So it's kind of an interesting process, but we are utilizing the same engineering firm, so we should be able to get a lot of really good feedback from all of that.
Any other comments on this? All right, next up we have City Clerk.
We had the municipal election on March the 19th. Of course, the candidates that qualified for the ballot won't be on there, of course. And so the canvassing board meets on Friday, because we also have to do a special meeting to read the results, or we do it at the workshop. But it's the first meeting, it's a meeting called for that purpose. So we usually do it at the same time. So the last time we had a primary presidential 4 years ago, it took 2 weeks, but we had commissioners on there. So we should be able to just call a meeting and swear the commissioners in after the meeting. I would think after Friday of that week. So maybe the same day of the workshop meeting or
Right, we've scheduled the workshop for Wednesday, March the 27th.
Right.
The canvassing board will meet that previous Friday, March the
Right.
22nd.
Right, and just have it that same day, earlier that day, where we can have,
Where-
food and everything, have a nice little ceremony. So it's up to you what you want to do.
I'm in favor of having it on the same day as the workshop. Maybe before.
Could probably start at 5:30,
Yeah,
Claire, I
probably.
think, or 5 o'clock, or,
we did
5:30
it at
probably
4.
works.
Usually,
Okay, and the
we did it
meeting's
a
at
half hour
6.
before last, 2 years ago.
So you want to do it at 5, 4:30, like last time, or just 5? Doesn't matter to me.
I think 5:30 is plenty of time, honestly,
5:30 it is then. I'll put
5:30.
it on the calendar.
unless anybody has problem with that. Thank you.
Yeah, so it'd be 5:30 PM on Wednesday, March the 27th to
Okay.
swear in our 2 incumbents
Right, and read the results.
and the results of the charter amendment.
Yes,
Okay,
be a happy day.
all right, thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, Next item up then is Community Development, Johns Pass Village Activity Center zoning. We have any public comment on this before we get started? Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So we've had two public workshops on the Johns Pass Village Activity Center zoning. We had one this Tuesday and last Thursday. We will have our third one on this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon here in the commission chambers. So I'm just going to go over briefly on what we discussed at those meetings. And then after the Saturday meeting, we plan to gather all of our input, and staff will meet, review the input, and present something to the board, as well as bringing this to Planning Commission every month until this is finished. So a little background. I know you've seen these slides quite a bit, but why the Activity Center? It's to protect the unique character of Johns Pass Village. We want to assure that there is compatible redevelopment in this area. We must be consistent with the countywide plan, and this is a proactive instead of reactive approach in planning. And the relationship with the local land regulations. We've also gone over this quite a bit, but at the county level, we have the countywide plan, and then locally, we have two things that we look forward to is the comprehensive plan and then the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances. So previously, we've really focused on the countywide plan and the comprehensive plan. When we've looked at Johns Pass Village Activity Center, we're talking about the land use, both the county and our local level. But now we're really focusing in on that bottom tier right here, the Code of Ordinances, which within the Code of Ordinances, there's a bunch of stuff in there, but we're really focusing on the land development regulations. And within those land development regulations, we have the zoning districts and then the corresponding zoning map. So what these three things look like, the three corresponding maps, here you have the countywide plan map, the Madeira Beach future land use map. This is in our comprehensive plan, and then our Madeira Beach zoning map. So when we've talked about Johns Pass Village previously, we were really focusing in on these two maps, the counties and then our comprehensive plan. But now we're really focusing and turning direction to our zoning. In zoning, which is in the Code of Ordinances here, that's really where you have your nitty gritty. When people come in and they ask us, well, what can we do with our land? It's really focusing on the land development regulations. What type of driveway can you put in? Your impervious surface ratio. You want to do an addition to your house. Okay, what's the setback? What's your height regulations? All of that, all of the nitty grittiness, that's in your land development regulations. That's in your zoning. You really don't see it in your comprehensive plan and your future land use. And then with the county, it's very broad. Your intensities, densities, and it also has your impervious surface ratio. So that's really what we've been talking about before. But now with the zoning, we're focusing in on like those setbacks, the heights, things of that nature. The activity center area, this is just the overarching area. And like we've discussed before, we will have character districts. We have these character districts listed out and described in the special area plan. Special area plan is that 70-page document. It's tied to that area with the comprehensive plan. And throughout these character districts that we created, these will now be turned into each separate new zoning districts. So there will be 6 new zoning districts. Just so you can see on each map what it kind of looks like. So at the countywide level, like we said, it's pretty broad, it's overarching. They just see it as an activity center. On our comprehensive plan, It'll look very similar. Although if you look at the future land use, if and when it's adopted, you would go to your comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan would say all the intensities, densities for this land area in the activity center, you have to refer to the special area plan. That special area plan is that 70-page document that then breaks it down into all those character districts. And then at the zoning level, that's where you see these character districts on an actual map. And so these will be six individual zones, new zoning districts. There's just an example of what we see in the land development regulations in the zoning districts. So C1 is this light pink area right over here. I know you've seen this graphic before, but it's just imposing these setbacks that we have onto, we just plucked a parcel of land, just so you can kind of see what those setbacks and then the height requirements, as well as the floor area ratio, what that looks like. So these are things that we will be writing and collecting input from citizens. In the Code of Ordinances, what we're really looking at, like I said, the land development regulations. So the land development regulations, there's a ton of stuff in there. Talks about landscaping, sidewalks, driveways, pools, accessory structures, all of this stuff. Within the land development regulations, you also have your zoning districts. Here's some of your zoning districts. C1, C2, C3, C4, so on. So with each one of those zoning districts, if you look at our code, you go to a zoning district, you'll see your setbacks, your uses, your accessory uses, special exception uses, setbacks, lot area requirements, your height, and there's also near the end of each zoning district, there's some special requirements. So these are also things that we really want to hone in on, especially in these areas, like the traditional villages, yellow area, commercial core, and boardwalk. We know that that's really the heart and the character of Johns Pass Village, of the tourist center, of what you think of as Johns Pass Village. So we really want to focus on inputting some like light design standards just to keep that character of that quaint fishing village style, that Main Street character that we all know and love. And then also another thing that we see a lot in zoning, our zoning districts with the special requirements are buffering requirements. And that can be used in zone-specific landscaping. That's typically what we see in that special requirement section. That kind of gets your juices flowing and thinking about what can we put in zoning, what would we like to see in the new zoning, and how it might be different than your typical zoning, like those design standards. And so in our special area plan, that 70-page document, it's tied to the comprehensive plan that really guides this whole process. We talk about how the comprehensive plan supports that unique character in Johns Pass Village. We want to retain that. We're retaining that through comprehensive plan, that change, as well as the zoning in the new zoning districts, just like those light design guidelines or standards that we talked about. And then the countywide strategy plan requires certain principles to be addressed. So we're really looking at these standards as well when we're thinking about the zoning. So location, size, density, intensity standards, connectivity, site orientation, public realm enhancements, ground floor design and use, and the transition to neighborhoods. And where we are in this whole process, it's a very long process. So next month on the 20th, the county will be looking at the activity center to designate this on their plan, so on their map. And then after that meeting, it'll come back to you on the March meeting. That's what we're anticipating. And this would be the final action on the activity center plan ordinance. That's 2023-01, and then also changing that on the map as well. So that's 2023-02. And at that meeting as well, I know we've mentioned it before, but if there's anything in the plan let me scroll up. I know there's a lot of steps. So the February meetings with the county, so they're changing on their map. And then we'd be bringing that back to BOC for their second reading. And that's the comprehensive plan. That's kind of like at this level. So be changing this map right here, to correspond with the county's map with that activity center. And then after those things, we are required to implement the zoning, which is what those workshops and the workshop on Saturday, that's what we're talking about. That's the input that we're getting. That's what we're starting, is to really implement that, those new zoning districts that would correspond to these character districts. So after the March meeting, then we'll be hastily working on these zoning districts and getting those fully adopted. And that's kind of where we are right now. I know we'll be bringing this, I'm sure, to every single BOC workshop and then Planning Commission as well, just while we're through this process. And that's all I have for you formally. Questions?
Do you have any, are you prepared to give us any kind of a report on what the response has been from the first two meetings? I'm going to be at the one on Saturday, but I haven't been to any of them yet. Have you had good turnout? Have they had some interesting questions?
We've had more questions on the second meeting on Tuesday. A lot of them weren't really focused on the zoning, though, unfortunately. And we've had some input. I was hoping for a little bit more input on, we've been doing like SWOT analysis and having each character district posted throughout the room with SWOT analysis and pictures and photos of where the area is, as well as a worksheet that we've been providing. All of this is also on the website. We've had a few, so I had COVID, so I actually wasn't able to attend the last two. I attended through Zoom, but Andrew, do you know how many sheets we've received?
So some people did take them home, but so they could send it back in, but we did receive like one, and then some of our boards had some most of kind of at least from the land development regulation standpoint, a lot of the kind of discussion was should planned PD rezonings be allowed down there, or because that was kind of the question of that, because with the character districts, we would have set height limit, set setbacks, like other requirements. While with the PD, it'd be rezoning it to a different category from that. But that'd really be up to kind of decide when we're get closer to writing the land development regulation ordinances to decide on that. But mostly it was just kind of focused on making sure the land development regulations kind of keep that character there and don't allow for things that look out of place or So that was kind of from the residents, that was the feedback.
So that leaves me just one thing that's been, I've asked so many questions about this. We talked about the bonus, like that can come with a development agreement. Does the county require that we offer that
I mean, it makes it more restrictive.
if we don't?
No, the development agreement requirement actually makes it more restrictive.
Well,
So-
except that on here, it looks like the density for John's Pass Resort, residential 18 units per square, temporary lodges 60 units per square, temporary lodges 75, but 100
It allows you guys. to
with
break
a
it down.
development agreement. So my question is, do we have to offer the option? of a
No, we
development
don't
agreement?
have to. We don't have to offer.
What's the
offer
benefit to
that
the
option.
city that we do offer that?
So through that development agreement process, it also talks about it in the countywide plan. Through that development agreement process, it's called the Alternative Temporary Lodging
Right,
Use, Alternative Standards. If you go to the countywide plan, it really tells you everything that has to be in that development agreement. They have to do a traffic analysis, they have to do design standards, what is it, mobility reports. So I don't have it in front of me, but it's
Sure,
quite
we've
extensive.
seen that like just a couple times since I've been around, but,
Yeah.
and I know it's a lengthy process.
Yeah.
It's a
but-
very, it's a lengthy process.
But what is the advantage to us providing that?
I
What-
mean,
what-
it allows it to
I'm
the
sorry, I
mitig-
can't hear you.
Sorry. It allows to better mitigate the impact of new development on the community, because the developer would potentially have to pay for street improvements, sewer improvements. And at the end of the day, you guys have final say over approving that development agreement or not. If you don't want that to be at that density, you can reject it or suggest, it gives the community the final say over what happens
But
down there.
we could say, yes, we'll offer a development agreement, but you still can't increase your density or intensity.
It's up to the board.
Yeah, yes, we could do that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we could say that now. We could just,
Yes.
we could just
Yeah.
say, this is our by right
Yeah.
density and intensity, take it or leave it.
I mean, at the second.
I'm not saying
At the
those words, but
second reading, I mean, you guys can adjust the density.
It's still open for
Yeah,
adjustment.
because I mean, at previous meetings, like for example, Commissioner Kerr reduced the by right density in the commercial core down to 60. So if you want to adjust it to just be the 75, 2.75 units per acre, 2.2 FAR, and have it just set at that, you guys can motion that at the second meeting. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of other components to this plan, so we don't want to lose this whole entire thing over, deciding what the maximum temporary lodging density would be down there.
I would just say that the development agreement process also allows the public a way for their input, as well as for the city to get stuff in return. That's really why you go through that development agreement process. You want
I guess because
improvements,
I've gotten
public
wind of a little bit of
improvements.
this that
Mhm.
people are asking about, and they're saying, well, the negotiation is we're giving you 25 more units per acre, 20 more.
But then the city gets things in return. So it's a give and take.
Yeah, it allows for for negotiating.
Mhm.
Yes, it allows for a property owner to essentially attempt to get to the highest and best use of their property. And now that can be, it can be height, it can be width, it could be a variety of different things. It does not have to get that, but it does allow for the opportunity for the city to receive infrastructure. But ultimately, it's another tool that a developer, property owner can utilize. They do not have to. We don't have to offer it. The board can state, we do not want that, and you can make that as a recommendation to change. And then it does not.
That's the pushback, the pushback that I've gotten is, I mean, I would be inclined to not offer it. That's why I asked, what's the benefit to the city? And
or
I
at least-
understand, we could possibly get some things done. They could, maybe infrastructure in some place, but they could build something right now. We have,
Yes.
Yeah.
we have an outline.
Definitely.
And if we really want to, I don't know, maintain the vibe, the feel of the village, I see us as not putting more people there.
I mean, as a compromise, I would recommend reducing it to 75 and keeping the development agreement requirement.
Yes, yes.
Because
I would
it-
be in favor of something like
Because
could
I
that.
also
want
do
to make,
something like
make sure
that.
that anything that goes in there, that the community has as much input as possible.
Right, right.
That's kind
I-
of why we included that, was to.
I like the development agreement.
Yeah.
It's the increase that's possible. I won't
Yeah.
be here forever to say no.
But just
I promise you.
keep in mind,
But I'd like to make it harder in the future for the increase in densification to occur in an area that
Oh.
at times is already pretty
but
tight.
this is not in the village. This is across the street that you're alluding to, I believe.
I think
This
he's
is the
talking about
Johns
the commercial,
Pass
I think he's
Resort.
talking about the commercial.
He's
core,
talking
too.
about I think you're talking about the Johns Pass Resort or in the village.
Well, at the moment, I was looking, they all have a
Uh,
potential for development agreement. There's the commercial core,
I was
has
talking
a
about the
development
commercial
agreement
one.
option.
Okay.
They all have something, and I'm
But they differ in the intensity. That's why.
Yeah, I think he was
Just wanted-
talking
yeah.
specifically about the commercial core.
Yeah. we
Where
could
if
be
you have an
more- I would
acre
like
of
to- we could
land,
be
you
more
can have up
specific
to
about it.
100.
But
So
there's, the development agreement is available in many of these zones.
Yeah, and you could
Yes.
reduce the density and still require the development agreement. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. And,
Yeah.
and if that's
I
what it
would,
takes.
I would be in favor of that.
Okay.
Obviously, my
And just-
colleagues may have other opinions, but I would be in favor of that.
Are you to keep it at 60 or for the commercial core? I
We're
think.
looking at,
I think the current is 60, right? The
Yeah.
density?
Is
Sure.
60 without, just by right.
By
That's what it
right.
looks like.
By right.
So 75 with the development agreement and the 2.2 FAR.
But I
And then
think your question, can we add a development agreement and keeping the density at 60 units or less?
Why would a developer do that?
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Why would a developer?
that's the answer
yeah,
to
if
that
it-
question.
if-
I was just
yeah,
asking if that's
There'd
what
be
you were
no
looking at.
incentive
sorry.
for him to do, or for, I say him because developer, but for
Sure.
any person, a developer to do that, an agreement with us and give us something if there's not getting something.
Mhm.
The whole idea is that they get something and the city gets something. It's a
Right.
negotiation.
Sure.
Yeah,
get
that's
that.
what.
I want to say that I think 100 is going too
Too
far.
much.
Maybe 75 max.
Well,
It's already, that's already 15 above what's by right.
Existed.
The
Yeah.
question is, what does the city get out of it? And that's on a case-by-case basis. We don't,
Correct.
there's no way to answer that question. Depending on what's proposed, if they propose something that's 75, you may be more apt to accept based on what they're offering. If it's 100, you may decide not to, or if it's really a benefit to more of the community, maybe the board at that time. It's got to go through the planning commission. They have to they have to be able to approve it. It has to go through multiple discussions with the residents. So it's,
Sure, but I'm looking at the mile high view. 100 is more than 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd like it
And-
less.
And I'd like it
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just.
so I
that's
think,
as
I think
simple as-
75 would be a fair compromise, to kind of meet in the middle somewhat. Because it'd still be important to make sure the developer pays for that infrastructure and mitigates that impact. So that's why it'd be important to keep it in, but at that 75 units per acre.
Mhm. And
Yeah, I
trying
just want to
figure
reel
out
it in
what's
while we're still
worth
at this
it.
stage.
Commercial
Yeah.
core, so.
And you're able to reduce, you can't increase, but you can reduce things at that second.
And
reading
I'm saying this
March.
all, and with the understanding of my first question, my answer to my first question, we don't have to offer any at all.
You're not required to.
We're not required to.
Yeah. It's an option.
Right.
Um,
And I guess the benefit to the city, we have developers who are gonna potentially do things that'll help the infrastructure, the city. But again, the big picture is 100's more than 60, and we're already at 60. So I'm suggesting, let's trim it down.
but at 60,
75 would
60,
be-
the city doesn't get anything.
Well,
Well, I think that's your
That's,
question.
that's
Could
by
we?
right.
Right.
yeah.
60, that's by right. So
And
there's
the
no
developer gets to build a
negotiation.
hotel.
They come in and they,
It's 60 units per acre though at is what the by right is. If that's all you're giving, a developer's not going to do a development agreement.
Mhm.
They're just going to build what they can build.
Right.
And the city's getting nothing.
Right, the development
Well,
agreement
stick-
costs a
Have to
lot of
give
money and a lot of time, which is an
Right.
additional money. The holding cost for the year, 2 years that you have to go through. You have to,
Well, I'd like to see the details on that, but 60 is what we've allotted, and that appears to be what our infrastructure can currently withstand.
I would also like to say that, say if you have 60 units per acre by right, and then if you jump up to 75 units per acre with the development agreement, if you really scale that down and, okay, it's units per acre, how many acres do they have? Most people don't have an acre. So you're only getting a few more units. Is it really worth it for the developer to go through that development agreement process? Probably not. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about these numbers. What makes sense for a potential developer in the future? Because the development agreement process isn't just easy.
Right.
Isn't just an easy
I'm
thing
just
to
saying, we have
do.
the second
So-
most visited beach on the Gulf Coast. We're offering him the opportunity to develop on our beach.
But you're just talking specifically about the commercial core area?
No, not necessarily. Any place where there's an option for an increase, a substantial increase in densification in any of these zones. I'm interested in
So,
either,
John's Pass Resort is across the street, and there is a density in that for lodging with a development agreement to do 75 to 100.
right.
So
I'm suggesting maybe keep it at 75.
I would like to do a little bit more visual of what that is, because if you're looking just at the commercial core and you look at what that is and who owns it, isn't that where the city owns property, Robin? Isn't that,
Not in the commercial core.
No,
or not the commercial core,
No.
it's
We're a
across from it,
traditional
isn't it?
village.
Traditional village.
Okay.
Can't hear you,
Use the
Andrew.
microphone.
Sorry. So if we go to the traditional village area, which includes the triangle and village, we have that limited to 45 units per acre because we wanted that to be primarily commercial and to not incentivize like removing what's current, because people like that, having those stores along village. So we wanted to make sure to keep it like that. There's still potential for if there's that do something mixed use there, but it'd be more of kind of a smaller mixed use with like retail on the ground and then a couple stories of temporary lodging or residential units above it. But, so basically the only places that we have that the 100 units per acre, if you have more than an acre of land and apply for the development agreement, are the Johns Pass Resort and Commercial Core.
Right.
Johns Pass Resort, there are some condo buildings that are pushed, I think Madeira Norte might be about, I think it's 77 units per acre, but we'd have to check exactly, but there are, some of the condo buildings are pushing pretty high on the density. Stuff like, Barefoot Beach Club's about, 60 units per acre.
Thank you.
it would be beneficial to actually know what some of the larger structures are.
We have that, we just don't have it in front of us.
We could add it back
for
into the
tonight's meeting.
presentation if you'd
Yeah,
like
we
us
can
to
do
do
that.
that.
Good idea.
I think that'd be
Bring it to
great.
the next
Just
POC workshop. We can absolutely do
kind
that.
of, yeah, an overlay of, identify what they are. Just a thought. That way you can compare in your mind what's reasonable.
I mean, most of the tallest buildings down there are about 6 to 7 floors. The tallest building in the village and commercial core area is the parking garage at 6 floors. And then Barefoot Beach Club and Madeira Bay are like the tallest buildings outside of that village and commercial core area at I think 7 floors.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments, commissioners?
And just to reiterate, the next public meeting Saturday at 10 a.m. right
The
here.
12, yes.
10 a.m. to noon here at City Hall, Commission chambers.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then, unless there's public comment on this, because we had a significant discussion. Just in case. All right, the next up then is the Marina Department, RFP 2023-11, digital information sign. Sir?
Mr. Crabtree's walking up, I'll go over it. Details of an RFP that we issued for a digital sign at the marina entrance, which is all on the south side of 150th of Tom Stewart Causeway. Brian Crabby.
Okay, so this sign is going to be, it's a full LED, top of the line sign. It'll have remote capabilities. You can, to access, if Robin would have access, he can do it right from his cell phone. So there's really zero complications. So if we need to get information out to the public, we can do it. That's really our main drive coming in and out of the city. So it's for residents and for our visitors. We could, spread information like, now there's no smoking on the beach. A lot of people don't realize that. So this is more to get it out to the public and really put something there that kind of more pops to everybody in the entire city.
Like free pump outs.
Free
Pump outs for all day. So our low bid for this sign was a company called I2 Visual. And the cost for the installation, purchase and installation of the sign is at $45,313. Robin, on keep going down that one. I think it's page 22. The page 22 will have a outline of what it will look like. They kind of put like a superimposed image on it. But this company has also done, they're the largest in the southeast, and they're based out of Fort Myers. But they've done a lot of signs like the State Fair sign on I-4, Florida State Fair. Big signs. They've done a lot of projects. They got a very good reputation. Looked into.
Crabby, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Will this be on two sides, coming and going?
Yes, yes, it's double side.
And would we be able to put marketing information on there?
Yes. As long as we're still providing, general information such as like public meetings,
So
things like, we can ask our code enforcement a little more, but I was told that was fine. Because the city doesn't allow a digital, billboard, but this being information sign like we have out here in front of City Hall, it is allowed.
Okay, have we reached out to Brian Lowak to see if the Visit St. Pete Clearwater would contribute to this?
I have not, but that's a great idea.
It's promoting tourism.
Yeah, we had budgeted it earlier, but yeah, absolutely, we can.
If we can get a,
Yeah, I'm not sure on if you could sell advertisement on it. I don't think so.
well, no, I was.
But yeah, he could
you know,
maybe.
He was here presenting, and I was gonna bring it up at that time, but I didn't want to get ahead of the,
Yeah, no, that's a
Thing.
great idea.
but it surely could be used to
Yeah,
promote
mhm.
tourism.
Absolutely, leave no trace, things like this, no dogs on the beach, a lot of there's a sign when you come over, but it's like more like a traffic,
Right.
directional thing, and this would look a lot better,
Well,
I think.
the branding he was using about, tourism, helping the community,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I'm sure he could help you with actually what to put up there, and it's gonna change. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it'll rotate however
Right.
our events and anything like that.
So if we could have that discussion,
Definitely,
That
I'll
would
reach
be-
out to him.
that'd be great.
Is there already electric run out to that area?
There was electric run out, but we ran it out there anyways. To add power that would be necessary for the sign, so it's there.
Okay, yeah, I'm just seeing a price to trench electric and put it in is,
They removed that cost
okay,
out of the 65.
all right, thank you.
We had it done much cheaper by our guys, Daryl and USA Voltage.
Perfect. And this is gonna be daylight viewable, it's,
Yes, and then if for any reason, if it is, yeah, because I've already thought about this, if it does bother, it can shut off at a certain time of night. If we want it to, we can shut one
it'll-
side off at a certain time of night if needed.
Do
You know,
you
so,
change the intensity, like some
Yes.
lights are
Oh,
so
yeah.
bright at night?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the one that's out here, we turn off at 10 PM. So it runs from 6 AM to 10 PM. So we can do likewise, we would do something similar
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah, I'm talking about the brightness though at night.
I think it does adjust.
Yes, it does.
Allows for
Yeah.
adjusting it.
I mean,
as
some
well.
are so blinding, it's like, oh my,
No, yeah, yeah.
okay.
And it also depends on what you put on there. Like, you have a white, logo or something like that, it's gonna blow up a lot more.
So we did, I don't know if you mentioned, we did receive two bids. And as Krabby said,
Yes.
I2 Visual is the lower of the two bids, I believe.
Yes, and then we had Fast Signs, they came in at 48,786. And I bid this out a while ago. I just got quotes a while ago, and 2 years ago, it was about 40 grand. So probably cost of everything. It seems like a very competitive pricing.
And it is going, I was reading the deduct if you went with ADS-EMC. Is it going to be a watch fire?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I'm
No, I
sorry,
asked
what's a
Mr.
wildfire?
Gomez already, we're budgeted for it. We're budgeted for it. You say they've got a good reputation. I've seen the sign you're talking about in Tampa.
Yes.
I feel we could just go forward with this, bid.
And this is coming out of the Marina Fund.
Marina
as
bid,
well.
yeah.
Gas money.
So so it will have to have some marina information, but the purpose, as was stated, was overall city information, but kind of, yeah, it'll, I think.
Yeah,
list
we'll
the
roll our,
gas
we'll roll our
prices a little
fuel
bit
prices, grunt hunt, if we got certain things going on or a sale.
Well, that's relevant
know,
to the
free
city.
pump
That's-
outs.
Yeah,
Free
absolutely,
pump
yeah.
outs. It's,
Free pump outs.
I don't think we have any open slips right now, or do we have any?
No, we do not.
Yeah, so.
Just our transient slips. So you look in there, but we keep a, percentage open for people coming and going in and out of town.
So if we had, slip rental available, that type of marine related info. But also during emergencies, et cetera.
Sandbags.
Great, perfect. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up is the parking division. We have Tom, Kitty Stewart Park parking lot overview, financial status, increased utilization, and user engagement.
So we have Jamal, our parking, to provide just a brief overview of what we've observed in essentially the first 3 months, including some of the financial, as to what the revenue has been. That's in your packet. Jamal.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Hope you're doing all well. I'm here to discuss the additional 3 spaces and the additional handicap space that was implemented in Kitty Stewart Park. So again, looking in your packet that you see previous fiscal years in regards of 2021 as well. There's undergoing construction at that point in time, but there are essentially 3 months of revenue and kind of just a overview of what you can see and how we've progressed. Again, if you look in comparison to the price change per hour as well. We do have a bit of a decrease in sales for the 3 months, September, or October, September, and December, or October, November, December. So I'm just here to answer any questions as far as if you want to keep these spaces. I think it's been quite beneficial. A little bit of feedback from the residents. It's been positive. Again, we need more research over time. But I think it benefits visually and it's more of appealing. I mean, with the construction near Kitty Stewart at the moment, it's not
Optimal.
yeah, it's not too appealing, but with the spaces, the rotation's pretty heavy still. So people are definitely using the park and the spaces as well. A lot of repetitive users. the residents that are aware, they're continuously using the spaces. So, I mean, once word gets out and, word of mouth as well, so people will start to utilize the spaces a little bit more as well, so.
And as you see, we had about 40, they were tracking usage of it. We don't have exactly the amount of time, et cetera, but about 40 kind of recurring users. So the data that we do, that would take over time, as Jamal said, to better identify cars and the amount of time that they were in there, which can do, requires that at the time that a vehicle is out there, that it gets entered into the handheld device. But you can see, and again, the revenue did decrease. I mean, there's 3 fewer spaces that are being used relative over the last, the same time period in the last 3 fiscal years. So it's not a gigantic amount of money in total, but it is a decline, which I think was expected because those went from fee to now no fee. We have seen an increase in the number of citations, but I think I asked the number of citations in those 3 spaces has been very minimal.
I think, maybe 2 or 3 citations in total. So
Again, most of the people who have been parked there do have the resident sticker. So
indeed.
it's being utilized. We don't know completely the extent of it. We would need more time. We do know there has been a decline in the revenue as listed in the chart. And again, there were 3 spaces of the 14 that were pay spaces. Now we're down to 11, and a 4th one was converted
To a handicap.
to a disabled or handicap. So there are 2 disabled spaces in that lot.
My initial reaction is I'm very pro the disabled for the residents. That's a given. I don't care about the money. But that being said, 40 users is 1% of the population, and it's costing us 25 grand in potential revenue. That's half the cost of this sign that Krabby was just asking for.
Well, those,
Oh.
I don't mean to interrupt, those are the recurring users. I would say that, and Jamal can probably add as well, the percentage of the usage of the spaces, I would probably put anywhere from like 1/3 to about 40% of the time, but that's just anecdotally myself
But
observing.
there's 40 unique users.
Right.
Is that,
Unique and reoccurring. I mean, they both play a role.
I mean, once you grab a tag,
Mhm.
if that tag comes back, he's not added to the roll. It's 40 unique tags.
In some instances it was, but we've gotten a little bit better on it, as mainly getting there and controlling the narrative towards collecting all the data as well. So, again, with time, that will increase, and we'll have a better scope of what we're dealing with, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's basically it will, and it is being used, for the 3 months, 4 months that we've had, from having signage to decent signage.
I get that, but
Yeah.
if one family were to use it every day,
Mhm.
I don't know that that's the city's intent, is to put a parking spot there for one I know I'm doing the extreme, but that's the mindset. Try to make decisions on the whole for, what's best for the residents in whole, in general. And is that, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. But it's, the people that use it, they're going to be very grateful. Yeah, I always have a spot there, but we also always have a spot across the street
Right.
that is resident parking only. So you have to cross the street.
With more encouragement as well, we have noticed that residents are parking alongside the spaces and not in the spaces. So I'm not sure why that is, but it doesn't happen too often. But again, when we do patrol, it's mostly 2 of the 3 spaces that are being occupied. And of course, the additional handicap space. But so, I
Right.
mean, reducing
So the
by
residents can
1.
park at any space for free.
Right.
Correct.
It's interesting that
Just whether it's restricted or not.
right, quite a few times, I can recall probably a dozen times.
Yeah.
That the resident spaces were empty, but there were 2 cars parked in the lot that had the resident sticker. Now, you don't know if
Correct.
when they pulled in, it was empty or somebody pulled out, but
They
that's
didn't
the.
really care. There was a spot open and they got it
and
because they
right.
didn't care.
So we don't know if there are some residents that are choosing not to park there. Again, there's no way to know that really, unless we were there hours at a time observing.
Right.
We've also been collecting the data for residents that have not been utilizing the space but parked at Kitty Stewart. So I'll give you more data on that when we've collected more of it, but
Okay.
yeah, so.
But right now, I'm feeling that the handicap is definitely, if I were a resident and I had a handicap, someone in the family
Mhm.
or a visitor that's handicapped and I want to take them to the beach, that's a no-brainer because you shouldn't have to cross this crosswalk, the street, if you're a resident and
Well,
handicapped.
The
But this
disabled
is-
space is open
It's
for
open
everyone though.
Open for anyone.
Yeah, it's not restricted.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's open for anyone and everyone. We just
That's
essentially
not,
added
that's
a
not,
second.
that's not,
Yeah, we went from 1 to 2 in that lot,
okay.
but anybody with a disabled placard can park there.
Correct.
And they're typically used.
Oh, yes.
They do
Perfect.
The
get
handicap,
used, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just want to put, it's 25 grand. It's not 6 grand at the city.
Right.
Just overall, $6,200 of,
Remember, October,
quarter.
November, and December are usually kind of the slower
Yeah.
months of the year.
so it could be more than 25
Could be
grand.
more than that. We'll get a much better feel January, February, and March, because it's the lots will start to fill up and be full for a longer period of the day, more days of the week.
Right, my feeling, I don't want to take the revenue from all the other residents for a few. That's my only concern. But love the data. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I would follow up and agree with Vice Mayor Kerr that when I looked at the data, it just being the short 3 months,
Mhm.
that is not our busy season. And when we build our budget based parking as part of the budget that we create. And do we need 3 parking places? Would 2 be sufficient for the amount of residents that have used the spots? When we look at decreasing our revenue and changing our budget, that matters to us. Parking is where we fund a lot. So my concern would be, over the long term, the 3 parking spots, the increased reduction of revenue that the city gets, where are we coming up with that money? Where is it going to come from? Nobody wants to raise the millage when parking is our lifeblood, per se. And we do have parking right across the street. So I would be interested more to see, or to discuss, do we need 3? Is 2 more designated? Because everything is parking for a Madeira Beach resident. If you're a resident, you can park anywhere.
Park anywhere.
If you're a resident, you park across the street and non-residents can't. So that would be my thought on just looking at the amount of money that we are down
Mhm.
in off season, where we're going to be in season, and the amount of revenue that's going to be lost.
We can also encourage when my officers do patrol Kitty Stewart to maybe leave some type of warning in relations to maybe parking in a designated resident space rather than taking or occupying a paid space. And for the most part, residents are very perceptive and just encouraged to help out in any way. So that I haven't explored, but it's in a way encouraging when it's time to renew your permits, to also encourage by leaving a ticket or a warning ticket
Just
on
to-
there
yeah.
and that's been very beneficial as well. Looking to collect as much data as possible, even if that means collectively tagging every vehicle that parks in our lot, period, regardless of handicap, resident. It's quite a task, but I think we can get a better scope of how many residents are using on a daily basis, how many visitors that, in relations to handicap that use our spaces, because essentially, it's good data to have.
I don't think that's a great idea.
It's,
If I'm
it's
if
out
I'm a
there.
resident, I park, I don't know that, I want,
Well, it's not anything visual, like, it's not anything visual as far as like what they see. So it's not like a ticket on their
Just like a
dash.
reminder.
they're not being told to park. at
Oh, I
resi-
see, yeah.
it-
It's an idea, it's,
That's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily think it's a great
if it
idea.
comes to a point where they're not
Yeah,
utilizing the
if we're seeing
spaces.
like empty spaces and we observe residents not park in the residence, then then
Bit
we
of
may
encouragement.
remind them, hey, in the future, please, if they're open, please park in we can't force them, but
No.
So
the
have-
idea being that that they would be taking paid spaces when the resident spaces are available.
Have you tracked how often the spaces are empty?
Two of the three spaces are mostly filled, and I believe all three spaces would be filled if they utilized the spaces instead of a paid space. Again, I'm not always there, and my staff, we have bigger lots, and it's, we try to run through it every patrol. So again, I think definitely two of the spaces would be ideal versus three. And then the handicap space, of course.
So we just don't, again, back to, because we're not at the busier
Right.
time, I think really the suggestion is to wait. Try this from my point of view, try another 3 months. We'll bring you back even more data to make that decision, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
As we just didn't gather as much as could be gathered, then we'll make that a little bit more of a priority.
Yeah.
So that we bring you back a little bit more data to be able to, whether we go from 3 to 2 to 1 or none at all is really what the decision will be.
Could I ask, well, just different point of view, what didn't we have, before caddies, didn't we have 9 spaces there? I can't remember.
I
Was
think
it,
it was 7,
it was just 7?
6 or 7.
From the older lot or
From
before
when it
Caddy?
was
There
just
were
Kitty
6.
Stewart Park,
I think there were 6 metered
And a
spaces.
handicap.
6 plus a handicap?
6 metered, right,
Okay.
and 1
And then
disabled.
and now with the
We went to
agreement with caddies,
14.
we got 14.
14 paid and 1 disabled handicap.
Yeah, so we have more than we had, and
Absolutely.
there's been a lot of controversy with some of our locals regarding Kitty Stewart Park. So I'm inclined to, at the very least, continue this survey to see how it goes. I know we're getting ready for some busy season. It may end up being a lot more revenue than we care to spare. But I don't want to forget that this is something that we agreed to help ease some of the pain, ease some
No,
of the
we agreed to
controversy.
try it,
Yeah, on a trial, and I
The
think
trial.
which we've done.
That's what I was saying.
I'm sorry.
We've agreed to try this out to help to ease the pain from some of the controversy over Kitty Stewart Park. So I'm definitely inclined to continue for a while, and keeping in mind that it's not always about revenue. Sometimes our returns are in quality of life for our residents.
I 100% agree with that.
But again, I will collect more data and just continue to present the best data I can present to you.
Thanks.
So.
Any other
Any more
questions?
questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Public Works Department Refuse Collection Contracted Service Analyses.
So I'll go ahead and take this one. I put this analysis together based on your request for a potential insourcing versus outsourcing comparison. So to give you a little background, the city already outsources its recycling collection. The refuse collection is done in-house. So what I did is I gave you 3 different pages in this analysis. The last page is just a 5-year history of audited information, revenues and expenses of the sanitation fund, along with FY 2023 unaudited preliminary, but I'd say near final numbers. And so then what I did is I said, okay, let's take those FY 2023 figures and add an adjustments column if we were to outsource the garbage collection to a third party. And so that's on item 10A. The preliminary numbers, which came from that 5 or 6 year history, that's what comes out of our general ledger, consisting of operating revenues, operating expenses, and then non-operating revenues and expenses. And then that adjustment column represents the conversion from insourcing to outsourcing. So let me go through some of those details with you on item 10A. So the first one on the adjustments column, if y'all are with me, everybody with me so far? So in the adjustments column, you have personal services expenses. So we did an adjustment down from 582, 746, down, remove 517,746 to give you 65,000 remaining. We can't strip out all salaries and benefits because we still have administration and management functions. Then on the operating expenses, we have an increase in the contracted services less a decrease in internal cost reduction. So let me go into just a little bit of detail of that. On the increase in contracted services, that detail is on page 2 of the analysis, page 3 of the analysis, page 249 of your packet. And so what we did is we took a recent RFP from the city of Bel Air Beach. I put the tabulation on that RFP that was just done, and the due date, in fact, was just in August 2023. So it's rather fresh, and it shows the 3 bidders, Waste Connections, Waste Pro Florida, Waste Management, that bid on this and what their total bid amount was. I then extrapolated that data and compared the city of Bel Air Beach's number of residential and condominium cans and number of condominium dumpsters and compared that to the city of Madeira Beach. Obviously, there's an increase in volume, so that we can't use that same figure. So I did an allocable proportion to arrive at an estimated cost of contracted services of $1,191,646 annually. I also took a 5% volume discount because I'd figured it's not a true apples to apples, that there would be some economies of scale by serving more residential and commercial units. However, we didn't put it out for bid, so this is just strictly hypothetical based on recent bid results that came from the city of Bel Air Beach. And then my final adjustment was on, if you go back to page 247, a decrease in our internal costs. We'll have an increase in our contracted services, but we'll have a decrease in salaries and a decrease in internal costs. And those are broken out in the next page on page 248 of your packet, just reducing by anywhere from maybe 50% to 100% on some of those general ledger accounts, like waste disposal, cellular telephone, maintenance on auto equipment, maintenance other equipment, and did, 100%, 90%, 80% reduction. And again, it's not a perfect science, but just to at least give you a general depiction of what our potential internal operating costs could be reduced by if we were to go with this outsourced services route. And then the last is depreciation, where we wouldn't depreciate every vehicle. We'd still have like a vehicle, truck, F-150, but most of our depreciation costs would go away in that scenario. And so then what that ultimately yields on that first page of the analysis is a fiscal savings of about $150,000 annually if we were to outsource those services rather than go in-house. Obviously, that's just a purely quantitative analysis. There's a lot of qualitative considerations to make, but if you look at that and say, wow, that's a lot of savings, I'm interested, or if you say 150,000 juice isn't worth the squeeze, given other qualitative factors to consider. I just wanted to give you that information with a little rough analysis that I put together based on the best information that I had. Take any questions if you got them.
So I have a question, and maybe Megan can, I don't know which one of you would better answer it. Our trash runs, and they also do the days that they pick up yard waste?
We do yard waste on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays. So we currently run trash pickup twice a week and yard waste once a week.
Correct.
So do you think that that would have been included in this bid that Bel Air did? Or would you think we would still do our yard waste pickup and someone else would do our trash pickup?
I would have to read through the bid again. I don't really recall if that was listed, but I would think that if we were going to contract out the service, it would be all of it. But also, just to add into this, that did not include any of our parks, the village, the beach, or any location of where we have trash cans.
This
So-
is just a residential
Just residential
collection.
and commercial.
So.
I'm sorry,
um,
residential and commercial, excuse me.
So I just have a comment of my thoughts, and I think I said this when we had talked about it at the meeting to bring it here. We sit up here and talk about level of service to the community. And one thing that is loudly told to us by residents is how much they love our trash service. And our waste management department, whatever, that's probably not the correct term. I know.
Sanitation.
Sanitation.
Public Works
I was
sanitation.
looking for that word. Our sanitation department, I've met them. They are hardworking, dedicated employees to Madeira Beach. The ones, I know that we have a little bit of a hiccup in keeping it fully staffed, but one of the things that I think is disheartening is that we talk about level of service to our community. We know how much many of our residents, especially our older population, depend on that white glove service, is what I'm going to call it, that our guys give them. And we are trying desperately to staff that department so that we can provide that level of service to our residents. And we're sitting up here talking about firing them all and them not having jobs. And I just think that's a terrible thing for us to be putting out there. That is just the opinion I have based off of the feedback I've received from residents and what I've heard residents talk about. I personally I don't support doing a bid. I think that's very costly. It's very time consuming. And I don't think it is what I have heard from our residents that they would want.
Thank you.
I also agree with Commissioner Brooks on this. The level of service that we've all grown accustomed to over the years is fantastic. I would hate to see that drop just for the figure that we're looking at. So, what I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Question, how many personnel are you down now?
I'm down one, but I actually have held 5 interviews this week. But having this conversation in the public, I'm not, going to be dishonest with you all. Morale doesn't go over very well. I think they're probably watching right now. So, trying to hire a new staff member with the possibility of contracting out the service may be a little bit difficult, but
Understand.
I'm going to make a decision tomorrow to hire someone. I've had some very great candidates this week.
How much turnover have you had in the last 2 years of personnel?
I can't give you that exact, I mean, I would say for the commercial route has been steady for 6 months. But with that, I have 2 guys on the truck that have been with us for several years. It's typically just that one person. The residential route, my guy of 29 years retired with 2 weeks' notice. So that's put me down on a personnel on the residential route, which is why the side loader has been important to us to keep it at a 2-person crew because we haven't had an issue with that. It's that 3rd person on the residential route that we are having a hard time finding.
We've had some significant, we have turnover, but we have been able to fill the
Yes,
positions. It's just been kind of a,
constant.
so it is high if we were to
Yes,
calculate it. I'd say probably close to 75%, but it has been flowing. We have been filling the positions and we will likely be full by the start of next week.
Yes, it's just getting that person to stay. That's the difficult part. Our pay, hiring at $18 an hour and then we do 19 with a CDL has made it much better. But you have CDL drivers in the public or in the private sector that are making $25 an hour. While our benefits are fantastic and we're now with FRS, that's not money in her pocket with the cost of living right now. So we're kind of at reaching to a certain group that is looking for a great pension and also for benefits for their family, knowing that that cost is something that they're not going to have to pay extra for. So, like I said, I've had some fantastic candidates. So I'm hoping that we'll find somebody that will stick with us, because my driver for the residential route is retiring in December. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep him around for a little bit if I can't find a replacement. But I don't know what's happened in the last month or so, but we've gotten a lot of CDL applicants, which is fantastic. I have reached out to the school, and I've talked to some of the professors there, and I'm like, we'll train them. I just need them to have a CDL. So I don't know if that's helped, but
No, that's very, very encouraging. I'm all about the level of service. You know that. I don't want to outsource. You take that $150,000 in savings, divide it by 4,000, just quickly, it's $38 a year. It's more than worth it. If that has to increase a little bit more, so be it. But I don't want the sidearm trucks. I don't know that anyone else besides you and Robin were copied on my email, reaching out to Jacksonville Beach to follow up on our previous conversation.
I did. I spoke to him.
But you spoke with him.
Mhm.
And just to reiterate some of the things he told me, and I would imagine he told you the same. Those sidearm trucks, they just beat up the totes. So that would be an added expense as for repair. The whole idea to use a sidearm is to reduce the labor, but that's the level of service that we've become accustomed to. We've already reduced that level of service once in my tenure here. I can't vote to reduce it again. I'm all about keeping status quo, and whatever we need to do to pay the guys to do it, that's where I stand on it.
I would like to just briefly mention what we spoke about with Jacksonville or Jack's Beach.
Please do.
The issues that they have is because it is a contracted out service. And when I spoke to him kind of what we're dealing with now, if they had the contract in-house, they could reduce a lot of those issues. The smashing of the totes, I think I've mentioned it before. We have a broyhill. That broyhill is out on the beach every day. It has an arm. It lifts those totes into that dumpster, and we've never crushed a can. So having our own truck that is programmed to meet the needs of our toters that we have will help to alleviate that. He did mention to me that you could tell the bad day that they were having on how many toters that they did crush. But that wasn't an expense that Jacksonville was paying. That was an expense to the contractor. They were just having to deliver those replacement toters, as I'm not sure why they had that in their contract, but that's not really something that I'm not worried about that. We did have a side loader that we used for a month, and I don't know that anybody even realized it. We didn't crush one can. We didn't have one complaint. We were able to do the pickup and the residential route much quicker. So my concern with the side loader is that my guys aren't going to get 40 hours a week because they're going to finish the route too quick. So I don't have a concern of that, but he did mention to me that having a side loader as a municipality is a better bet with the labor problems that everyone is seeing.
And I can see that. And the promise was we'd always have one person on the ground following.
And we will have two people in that truck. One person will be on the ground and one person will be driving that truck. I can assure you of that. I know.
I can't see it. Can't feel it. I'm sorry.
We will trial it.
Yeah, it's a lease basis. If we don't like it and as a
Right.
consensus, then
We
we
return the vehicle.
return the truck and go back to a rear load. I think that was one of the reasons why we decided to lease the
lease.
truck. So We try it for a few months, and if we don't like it, then nothing lost except for, a few months of a lease price. We don't own it. And-
Could I answer, with regard to the comparison, was the bid, I assume that the contracted company is only gonna have a driver. Is that right? They're not gonna have two people on that truck.
Highly unlikely. I don't remember it specifically listing that, which truck they had. Do you?
No, I'm not aware of that, but usually, I mean, that's what the contracting companies would do.
Right. Yeah, my mother's house in Tampa has
Mhm.
that. And the level of service is finicky if you don't have the can face the right way, if the right time of day. I mean, I think we'd get run out of town.
Well, and we have
if we-
residents
If,
who,
if we went to a service
Yeah.
like that after what we're used to.
because we still have residents that they go get their garbage can.
We have a list.
Yes. So what's going to happen to those people?
Yeah.
And
Those residents, I mean,
you-
life's changing drastically over trash. It makes no sense.
So just to point out, we are sacrificing $150,000 for the well-being and to renew our customers' quality of life, which I'm in favor of.
But ultimate, it also gives us, we have 100% control of the collection.
Right.
The who, the how, when, where, why, any issues are addressed almost instantly. Even
The biggest thing that I
Saturdays
can
and Sundays.
think of is, I'm not even sure anybody really realizes, but anytime we have a storm event coming, regardless if it's a pickup day, a brush day, the whole crew is out sweeping the whole entire city. That's not something that we receive from a contracted
We
service.
would not.
Not even to mention after a storm cleanup. I don't know if anybody truly saw the city and the disarray that it was in. But having the crew in-house, we are working tirelessly day in and day out. And the guys were even working 10-hour days to get the city in tip-top shape. If we contracted that service out, it would be an additional cost.
Right.
It would take much longer. And they may not even be able to do that level of service, which we would have to bring in another contractor to help with that. So that's an additional cost.
Right, and they're throwing things in the back of the truck,
Mm-hmm.
which they can't do with a side loader, and a side loader can only go up one side, and if a car's in
We
the
do that
way.
pickup on Wednesdays. Rush and bulk pickup are specific to Wednesdays, and that's why we've been kind of trying to encourage everybody to only, if you can fit a palm frond or so in your trash can, great, perfect. But putting one palm frond beside your trash can is, so let's save it for Wednesday or put it in the can. It just makes it easier on the guys as well.
Well, I hope that anyone watching at home knows that we support, I think well, I know 4 of us do. The mayor hasn't spoken, but
No, I'm in
so
agreement with
we are
everything.
100% then in agreement that we do not want to outsource.
I just wanted to know what the numbers were.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And just to mention, did everybody see our new trash bin cleaner that's outside by the stairs?
I had a question.
Okay.
Does it reclaim I don't know what else to call it, the spooge? Does it reclaim that?
It sure does. Yep,
Oh.
there's an extra bin for that.
Okay.
Yep, so what happens is and after Seafood Fest, we cleaned every single trash can and they came out
They smell
brand new.
good.
Yeah, so.
I was out there, I smelled the trash cans. You may quote me on that one,
I would like a picture, sir, but
Yeah.
just kidding.
but people were staring at me like, what is that crazy person doing?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So you'll see that toting around and I've had a few people residents ask me about cleaning their trash cans. We'll come forth with probably some type of program whenever we do a fee schedule change. Thank you all for your support. We really do
No,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. All right, next up is the Recreation Department. Good evening.
Plug this in wrong quick, sorry. There we go. All right, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The first topic is the fitness center. We have since September been doing a trial period for the fitness center. I've got some preliminary numbers in here that essentially since September, when we opened up registration, at the time of this, we had 94 users registered. We are now to 96. users registered. And then there was a minor typo. I put December 8th through 12th. That was actually January 8th through 12th of this year. I wanted to get the first full week of the year that we had the numbers. We saw 15 total uses over a 5-day period of the facility by residents at the time. So, and then I listed in the fiscal impact the expenses that we have put forth so far. And then I did just get an invoice for the AED that we put in there, which was another $2,500 for that. So there is an AED in that room as well. So essentially I was looking to get feedback on what the thought was moving forward. We faced quite a bit of challenges with this. If we were to move forward, there is still some technology that I would have to look to get, because so to kind of walk you through this, you would walk into the rec center, you fill out your waiver, and then we would provide you with a card. So the cards we have, I've programmed 150 cards so far. And to do that, I physically have to leave my office, come down to the building department and get on the computer there that has the only access to that room. So I don't have the ability to do that freely as we register people. I just have to do them ahead of time in progression and in chunks of, I guess, registrations. And then should there be any issue when they go to use that card, which we have had issues, there's been power surges and different issues. They would need to come down to the rec center to let us know. And then we would have to physically come down here to try to get that all together. So some sort of upgrade would have to go with that to provide not only myself access, but anybody else. So I'm not the only person that is doing this. There have been you see the fiscal impact where we have purchased equipment that has come back from feedback from the users. Whether or not we felt like it needed to be replaced, there was actually equipment that was removed by users of the fitness center and brought to the rec center against the recommendation of the rules that we set forth. So it's an interesting, it's been an interesting lesson so far. I appreciate the ownership that has been taken in some of it, but some of the feedback has been a little more, I have to be careful the way I say this, but entitlement is a big word for some of the folks that have utilized it. We have had some people that have used it properly and been very positive with their feedback and do use it quite a bit, or at least on a regular basis. But we've had some other issues where just about any time we go in there, there's something that's not right or not up to par, or, you know, I don't know. It's tough. It's where we are with the trial, and the feedback is kind of, I guess there's a gap there, I feel like. And that's why I gave 2 recommendations. There really is, we either have to look to invest in newer equipment technology and then do something for the staffing that are dealing with folks on a day-to-day basis, or unfortunately discontinue the public use. The other thing it has done is I have seen a shift in the use by the fire department. If they miss their window, they are not going to the gym. They are finding alternative routes to get their PT in, because if they do happen to go during those hours that are for the public, they are getting a lot of questions on how to use the equipment, why the equipment is in certain condition, or different things like that. So it's provided a little more, and that's not just them. That happens to just about everybody that's gone in as a staff member for the fitness center. So I get a lot of feedback. That's been a lot of fun as far as the morale between myself and other employees within the city. But so yeah, that's kind of where we are. I don't know if you guys had any questions. That's not the most positive feedback, but it kind of gives you an idea of how it's been going there. So yeah, whatever you guys are.
It was great to have the trial. I'm still opposed to it, as I was originally, for all the reasons you mentioned. This is, in my opinion, a great benefit for the fire department that we have. They're a tremendous resource, and I think it needs to be dedicated to staff, as it was. I don't think it should. The city shouldn't be in the business of having this type of facility when you can go to a local fitness spa and have a $10 a month membership. It's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze, in my opinion.
I agree with Vice Mayor Kerr. I did not agree with opening it to the public. I never felt like it was a gym that was intended for the public. And the cost that we've already expended for a small group of people in our community, not that any person should not be afforded what they want here, but what we're taking away from the fire department. I mean, the fire department, and that was my major concern when we voted on this, was that that facility, that workout area was meant for them. The grant for the equipment was for them, and for them to not be able to freely go and work out when they have the time, I just don't think that's right. I don't think that's what we should be doing to our fire department. They should have a gym.
I appreciate all your hard work, Jay, you know that, and I appreciate your opinions here on the dais. I'm going to disagree. I think that the majority of people that have come to me in my district that I've talked to, even one today, came and got a replacement card. Everything's been positive so far. I haven't heard anything about taking taking equipment down to, out of there and taking it down to the, as you say, down where you're at. So, and I haven't heard of anyone, asking the firemen how to use the equipment. I've just gotten positive feedback. Even if we did charge $10, it's just something for our residents. And I'm just the speaker for the people of Madeira Beach, what I have gotten back. And so, in my opinion, I would like to keep it for the residents of Madeira Beach. Thanks.
Well, if I just provide pure data, I've had, 3 or 4 very positive people that thanked me. I didn't do it by myself, but I look at the issues that you're having, and I think coming all the way from the rec center up here is a major problem. So I mean, is it possible to put someone here in liaison with you so that they could get there? I'm just posing possible solutions to some of the problems. Your other recommendation of the newer equipment, I don't think we should provide newer equipment. The gym is what it is. In time, people will figure out this isn't the kind of gym that they were expecting. And the people that I spoke to that go, they understand, yeah, this is a bare bones. I need to know what I'm doing here. I do feel badly about the fire people being badgered. I'm sure that's annoying to them. I don't have a solution for that. But I generally would be in favor if we could figure out a way to minimize the getting in and out. Because again, while they could go to a gym, East Sporta, 4 miles, and there's a couple more gyms in Seminole. We provide recs, we have a rec center facilities, we provide other things. I mean, even hotels provide a gym like this. So while I'm very sympathetic to some of these problems, I would love to see if we could get it so that you're not walking back and forth, and we could get something here to make that work a little bit better. And I don't think we need to change the equipment. I think we just leave it the way it is.
I'm in agreement with leaving it the way it is also. I think the biggest thing is when this whole city center was built and people had brought this to my attention, it was touted that it was going to be a fitness center it was available to the residents. And I'm one to stick by my guns on that if the city was going to advertise that, and nobody was from here was here then when all of that transpired. But when people showed me this documentation, well, I'm going to hold my ground with that. I think there are issues, sure. I think we can get them worked out. I think it should continue.
I was here
Yeah.
and I was personally, and I can only speak for myself, I was very disappointed when I found out that I did not have access to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank
So
you.
then that means that you need to come back with cost,
Mhm.
real yearly cost, because that's what we're talking about. This is just what it's cost so far. So real dollars of what it's going to cost to keep that open, real dollars of what it's going to cost to staff it, to make it so that we can vote on that. And understanding that we're kicking our fire department out. Because
Well,
that is
They can still
essentially
use it, but I mean, there's
But
time
it's-
periods, but I think they
it's been
feel.
a struggle, which is
Right.
what we had
But
discussed in the
there-
beginning. If they got a call and they couldn't go in their allotted hour, then they wouldn't get to go. So
Well, they can
Um,
go. They certainly can go. They have as much access as anyone else. I understand
But
that there
when the
may
fire
be,
department's standing there, when a firefighter is standing there and a resident walks up to them and asks them how to use the equipment,
right. I've been there. I've worked
No
out,
right
I've worked
answer
out with
for
the
the fire
firemen. I
department.
understand. They're on a time crunch.
yeah, but there's no right answer and they
Well,
can't help
their
them.
right answer is, I don't know. I'm
if
sorry,
that-
I don't
if-
have
If that
time.
resident doesn't know how to use the equipment, he shouldn't be using the
I
equipment.
100% agree, but they're getting.
There's a
the-
liability issue.
That is correct.
There's so many issues, and
I assume
restrict-
we have a waiver for them, right?
We do.
Yeah.
And I've gotten complaints about the waiver
Well,
because
that's
it's too much
standard, though.
information.
That's standard.
I wish I was
You have
kidding.
to sign it, you have to sign a waiver to work out at any gym.
Yep.
I just don't think the city should be in this business.
We're not.
And again, back to my point with the parking at the beach. It's benefiting so few and it's costing Jay's time, his staff's time, let alone equipment and actual dollars spent on scanners and wipes and keypads and cards and software and management. It makes no sense.
Well, and this is only for a
Not
few
when you can get it
months.
for $10 a month right down the street at a facility that has the type of equipment that they're looking for. It's not a huge burden if you want to work out at a gym to go work out at a real gym. And it's just that, it's $10 a month.
My final thought is, so far, I've gotten positive feedback from the residents of Madeira Beach. That's who I work for. So I still stick to my guns. And if we have to charge a $10 monthly fee, I don't think the residents will really disagree with that at all. So I'm sticking with what I've already said.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay. I'm the next item too. So.
Next up is city-sponsored fireworks.
Okay, well, so the fireworks contract lapsed on November, well, not lapsed. We put on an RFP last year and the contract was for 1 year. But in review of the RFP earlier today, I recognized that it was a 1 year with 2 1-year renewal options within the RFP. That's how it was advertised. So I have a recommendation here to go to RFP. Please ignore that. I would prefer to renew the contract with the company that we utilized this past year. He has been calling, looking for the dates, already looking to plan for next year. I have included the dates of March 16th, May 4th, July 3rd, and November 11th. Those would go off of if we did the same weekends / dates, holidays of previous year. So I essentially ideally would like to discuss those 4 dates and then move forward with renewing the contract with them for an additional year.
Are these dates like King of the Beach?
So March 16th is the Rotary Carnival that we do on the fields over here. May 4th is the Grouper Gala, tentative date. July 3rd is Independence Day. And then November 11th is
Veterans Day.
Day. If we were to reallocate any funding to make the 4th of July larger, I would suggest the November 11th date to be reallocated. If we don't want to touch it, then those dates are what I would recommend.
So I've only had feedback on a couple things, and I got a abundance of feedback. One was, why are we having fireworks on a different day than July 4th? And can't we get the barge back? So I did have great conversation with Robin on that, but so I know we talked about like the pier and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But so those are the two concerns that I heard the most was, could we please go back to the 4th of July, and could we please go back to a barge and get away from the school?
So we can. A barge is expensive and more difficult to obtain on the 4th of July. The July 3rd date makes it more affordable and probably easier to attain. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but that is the goal at this point. This
To go
past
back
ye-
to the barge?
Yes, this past year, so this company utilizes a company for barges. This past year was City of Tarpon's 100th year, I believe. It was one of those cities up there, and they were utilizing the barge on the same night. So the goal is to discuss it and try to do so again. Here, not there, but
And
I
if you're,
can, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I can have that conversation with him as early as tomorrow and see what that looks like as far as the 3rd versus the 4th. He did mention the July 3rd. I know there was a little bit of feedback in the show this year. There was a malfunction. Something fell over, shot sideways, and killed a portion of the show, which is why the show on November 11th was as large as it was. So they did make up for it, but his intent is if it's on the 3rd, he will be here himself, making sure that, you know,
It killed the best part of the 4th of July. Everybody was waiting for the finale and it never came.
yep.
But again, the 3rd allows us to have it in our same budget the 3 other
Well,
times.
Correct. Well, with,
Not with a barge. I think.
No, no,
the
no,
barge
not with
is
the
gonna- yeah.
barge, but we just had it on Independence Day on July 4th.
correct.
But then when we switched to the 3rd with that same budget, we could get these additional dates, basically. Is that correct?
Well, we shortened the one on July 3rd.
A little bit.
A little, to accommodate the other dates, to keep a $30,000 budget. So again, I was going to mention, I mean, it really will take, your guidance if you.
Well, I'm just saying, if we stick with the same budget and go to July 4th, the other ones are out.
Maybe one of them. It was more affordable on the 3rd by a couple $1,000s, which allowed us to fluctuate to a 4th date. So,
Okay, I'm just going by
yeah,
memory.
I mean, there's an option to, yeah, we can make modifications to the dates. I mean, clearly that's available. We'll research July 3rd versus the 4th with the barge. So the show would be out here on the waterway versus at the school. Another option is, I mean, to increase the budget, but I mean, and we could make that adjustment if we wanted to keep one or none, or just the 4th of July, and none of the other 3, or one of the other 3, or I think however you'd would want us to proceed, really. It's kind of we do get great feedback from all of the other shows that people absolutely loved. And did they draw a bigger crowd? Hard to say for the King of the Beach. I think that's a big draw, but it is I heard nothing but compliments for all 4 of the dates this past year, even except for the July 3rd. They thought it was a little short and could it be longer? So, and now I've heard more this year for having it on a barge than in my first 2 years. Have it on the 4th of July with the barge. I said, well, it's been a struggle to get a barge. Does the 4th of July kind of I think it makes a little better sense. I'm speaking for kind of logistically, it's on a Thursday night. So the 4th of July. We utilize the 3rd of July, I think, more because of where it fell. So in the calendar. So this past year, it was a Monday no, July 3rd was a Monday. And that's when we held the fireworks and kind of 4-day, I think a lot of people made it, 4-day weekend, took the 3rd as a holiday. We had the fireworks. The sheriff's deputies have told me that it's easier for traffic in and out. Apparently when and I haven't been here when the fireworks here in Madeira have been on the 4th of July. But I've been told, and I think Jay can add, that the traffic poses some issues when all the cities are having it on the same evening. I'm just going based on what's been
Yeah, on the 4th of July without fireworks, they still struggle to get beachgoers off the beach.
but
with
easier
traffic.
than if you had
So
the
on the
fireworks.
3rd, I mean, logistically, almost everything lines up on the 3rd. It's easier to get the police. There's a better chance of the barge. The fireworks are more affordable. I mean, there's just staffing. We're on the 3rd. On the 4th, we're paying overtime for staffing. So it's just,
Right.
compiles.
How soon can you reserve the barge if we decide to go that route? I mean,
Well, I would have to have the conversation with him, like I said, yeah, tomorrow morning. And just see what that looks like. I know last year he said, he brought it to my attention before the show last year, and then immediately remembered that they were using it somewhere else. So they use a barge out of, I want to say Crystal River or Tarpon. But either way, we've actually had people offer to not drive, but to pull the barge with their tugboat for free if we could find one. And we can never find one. So, it's always like, hey, we'll pull it, put us up in a hotel for a night and we're good to go. And, we just can't find the actual barge. Plus, we've utilized larger barges in previous years. Now with technology emerging that there are remote control detonators for fireworks, they don't have to sit next to what they're about to blow up. They can do it from a distance. So it shrinks the size of the barge that's necessary as well.
I haven't had any feedback from residents, so I don't feel like I have it's just a personal opinion if I say anything.
And I think, Jay, you meant if we had to reduce the dates, did you say, maybe
I mean, the 11th is.
The 11th is the one that
Yeah.
probably didn't draw more. It was really nice to have, and then that the date coincided with the King of the Beach event, and then they paid for fireworks on the second night. So that's how that happened this year. I don't know if the dates are the same.
I'd have
this
to
year.
double check.
We'd have to check, but the other two, the March and the May, I think we drew more people because you offered fireworks. But whatever your direction be, I think.
I mean, I would think isn't the real question is just staying with the company you're with? And then you'll find out what our options are with the budget we have.
Yes.
I think that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
But how quickly are you gonna have to make a decision? Let's say he says, yeah, we have a barge and we can provide it on this date or that date. You're gonna know that in the morning, but then we're not gonna have a meeting for a couple weeks. Does that matter?
No, I would look to bring a contract
Back
with
to you,
proposed
yeah.
dates back on that meeting.
On February 14th.
And he's calling me. He's ready to go.
Okay.
He's booking from now until end of May and wants to make sure that March 16th and May 4th are on our list. And then after that, but with him booking out that far, I can have that conversation. He's already told me if it's with us, he wants to be here.
I mean, those dates make a lot of sense because you already have a group here.
Mhm. Yep.
And you want to keep them here as long as possible if they know fireworks is coming at sundown.
Could I just quickly and to put you on the spot, would you prefer July 3rd or July the 4th? Because that's a question that's been posed to me. And I'm like, I'm fine either day. But I'm just curious if there is a preference or
An
not.
argument could be made either way. I mean, July 3rd, you're going into the 4th, everyone has the day off the following day. You have your party on the 3rd, or you have your party on the 4th.
If
So
I can,
nobody-
if I can speak as a resident, on July 4th, you're not moving on this island till midnight. You just, because it's gridlocked from Treasure Island to Clearwater. But, I mean, what
That's
the
why we-
residents want, but.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know in Crystal Island, I mean, there's parties everywhere and traffic is crazy.
Well, there's no shortage
Um,
of fireworks on the sand either, so on the
Yeah.
4th of July. Because they are allowed on.
Well, I
Yeah, I think that's.
yeah,
They're allowed on the 4th and December 31st and January 1st.
Yeah, so personally, I was at an event on the 3rd and it was great. Everyone enjoyed it. And then we went out on the beach on the 4th.
That's what I did. yeah.
combat.
Okay.
So I'm fine
Just
either
what-
way.
I personally don't care, but the feedback I got was
4th, yeah.
the 4th.
All right.
I'll
Thank you.
bring back
Yeah.
options. So I have a feeling that if it's the 3rd, there's a better chance at a barge. If it's the 4th, it's a school. That's,
So I'll tell you what, you bring us back options and I will go to the people who complained about the barge and the 3rd and see what they think about not having the barge and it not being on the 4th and see what the consensus is for a barge on the 3rd.
I'd be batting 500.
A compromise.
One
We'll
out of
see.
two.
let's do it at midnight in between. Started on the 3rd and ended on the 4th.
And you cover both days. Oh, my.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, no, thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Commissioners, anything else?
Just real quick, I just wanted to say that I attended a seminar this weekend with I had it right in front of me. The elected
League of
officials,
Cities.
municipalities in Gainesville, and I went going thinking, oh, this will be fine. It was great. I wish I had gone when I first started. If you haven't attended, I strongly recommend it. They have different levels. We even played a board game, and we did a budget. And I thought it was very informative. So if you haven't done it already, I strongly recommend it. They do a very good job. They respect your time. They have relevant information. And,
Eddie and I attended FLC 1 and 2.
oh, you've already done it.
We've done them both. And I would believe, I don't personally, I believe that we should have an ordinance that when you get elected into Madeira Beach, that you must attend the training. And the reason I would tell you that is that, number one, there are many residents who have criticized every volunteer on a commission in this city and us as paid officials as being uneducated and not knowing how to do our jobs, right? I mean, with all due respect, that has been said. And when you go to the FLC training, 1 and 2, there's so much information. The first one, if you have never served in the city, it gives you all of the tools that you need to understand your role, the role of everyone within the city, the role of your city manager, the role of your city attorney, the role of your finance director. I would love to see us vote an ordinance for first-time elected officials to go and attend, because I cannot believe that anyone would attend it and not come away just like you did. Because that's exactly how I felt when I went, and I had been volunteering and had served with the city, and I thought I knew a lot. And after that class, I walked out and said, wow, I really knew nothing. So I love that you went. Fantastic, Commissioner Taglerini.
Anything else? Time's 9:48. We'll go ahead and adjourn.